teams are best in class. So, my view is that we have to be thoughtful around valuation, but you can't let valuation lead when you're making a decision at this point in the cycle.
Kate Moore, great to see you. Fantastic to have you with us in the studio. Kate Moore of BlackRock. Our listeners can't see what I saw at about 7:01 when you walked into the studio, tearing up over President Mario Draghi.
It's going to be emotional.
And his final news conference.
The difference is, Michael Barr and Kate Moore, Pharaoh's been there. What will it be like in that room?
I think there's going to be a big farewell, and I think we've got to sort of reflect on the ECB that he inherited. I've got a lot to say about this through the programme, but he inherited an absolute mess, and he addressed that Eurozone crisis to begin with just words, without buying a single bond.
Let me address a data check right now, and we'll have much more. We're thrilled that John can give us real perspective on ECB today. Kate Moore, thank you so much with BlackRock. Futures up 5, down futures up 30. Again, Twitter, we're down 13% on Twitter, a difficult quarter.
And now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, thank you very much. The NYPD officer who was fired in the 2014 chokehold death of Eric Garner is suing to get his job back. Daniel Pantaleo is suing the department and the police commissioner to be reinstated. Pantaleo's lawyer argued that his client's termination following an administrative trial was arbitrary and capricious. Laura Cooper, a senior Defense Department official who oversees Ukraine, testified before the Republican and Democratic members of 3 House committees yesterday as part of an impeachment inquiry into President Trump. About 24 Republicans stormed the closed-door room before her testimony. Lights went out across large portions of Northern California as PG&E began its second massive blackout in 2 weeks because of dangerous fire weather. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Talk.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. This from Bloomberg News. Hong Kong, China aims to buy $20 billion of U.S. farm goods in year 1 of a phase 1 deal. We'll have much more on that. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
Isn't it funny how you're noticing them more and more? Parked at the school gates, waiting at a red light, or charging on the side of a street. The electric car With over 4,000 new drivers on the road each month and over 40 models available, the electric car is now the car. Search Go Ultra Low to find out more.
So it's not fair, self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge. Literally, a blueberry falls out the bag. And it's going, thanks to assistance. You need assistance. And now you've got to wait there for hours because everyone else is moving things. It's just not fair.
If you want fair, you want fibre broadband from TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Right now, the future is being written by people like you. Creative thinkers, tech lovers, problem solvers. Are you going to stand by and watch? Well, show the world what you've got. Join others around the UK on an EY degree apprenticeship in digital and technology. And earn a salary working with exciting businesses while studying towards a degree. Don't let the future pass you by. Get involved. For more information and to apply, search EY Digital Apprentice.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, all right.
Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
Let's discuss what's happening in the South Korean economy and bring in from Seoul, Jung-hoon Park, Standard Chartered Bank of Korea, Head of Korea Economic Research. Great to have you with us. So we are now seeing the South Korean economy slowing down. Not surprising. It's a bellwether of global trade, global tech as well. And we are seeing the trade tensions continue to weigh on these export vulnerable countries. What are your expectations for future growth and how the Bank of Korea can react to this?
Today's like a 0.4% is pretty much aligned with the market expectation. I expect around 0.5, but pretty much aligned with the market expectation. So we expect the Korea will grow 1.9% by the end of the year. So that is more or less like a market consensus now. I think today we expect a bit of a positive surprise because government has been advocating Korea can grow over 2% for this year. But today's number is not, in the market's perspective, it's not a horrible number. It's pretty much aligned with our expectation. Next year, actually, we are more positive about the Korea economy. We think like IT down cycle is going to end probably early next year. I think IT will be driven by the 5G installation, and that is going to be helpful for the IT upcycle next year.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 7:17 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. Brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing, providing the latest thought leadership with strategic and actionable insights to help you manage and grow your business. Visit the Perspectives section of Pershing.com to learn more. Now let's check the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. Mario Draghi oversees his final ECB policy meeting after 8 years at the helm. For all his successes, any congratulations will be mixed with questions about the region's brittle economy. The euro area manufacturing PMI stayed in contractionary territory for a 9th month, though the services gauge picked up a tad. French services provided a boost, and the pace of Germany's factory decline eased. Tesla shares are jumping after it delivered a quarterly profit few saw coming. Elon Musk was also positive about his China factory and Model Y. Even so, revenue fell. And Amazon reports earnings today. Bloomberg Intelligence expects a shift to one-day shipping and record Prime Day probably stemmed a slowdown in international business. Twitter and Intel also report. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
All right, Hannah, thank you. And of course, we have heard from Twitter. Those shares down 18% in early trading. It reported quarterly revenue and gave a sales forecast that fell far short of Wall Street estimates. S&P futures are higher, up 5 points. Dow futures up 31. NASDAQ futures up 41. The DAX in Germany is up 0.6%. 10-year Treasury up 1/32. Yield 1.75%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.5% or 26 cents at $55.71 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.2% or $2.90 at $14.9270 an ounce. The euro 1.1129 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.63. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thank you so much. This is a special moment in that Mr. Farrow cut his teeth at Bloomberg in Frankfurt with the ECB. And I say this, and maybe he's listening to laureate Robert Schiller of Yale University, and that, John, we look at these people, and in the racket, we look at their pedigree. It matters how they got there. Mario Draghi has one of the most magical pedigrees of any goosebumps pedigree. I remember the first time I interviewed the laureate Robert Solow, the king of growth, who redefined how we look at growth in the late 1950s. Think of Steely Dan, IGY, all that, 1957. And then another magical name that Professor Schiller would know, and that is Franco Modigliani. Draghi is a direct descendant of the excellence of Italian economics from another time.
And surrounded, Tom, by the likes of Stanley Fischer, the godfather of modern central
MIT.
banking at MIT. Look, I think he will go down as the greatest communicator of central bank policy that we've ever had. I don't know if anyone can ever fill those shoes. If you think about what he inherited at that moment at the end of 2011.
Well, remind us, because American listeners don't know that.
The Eurozone economy was on its knees. Unemployment was through the roof, and the bond market was totally out of control. And there was a chance that Axel Weber of the Bundesbank of Germany got the job at the top of the ECB.
Remember that?
And it ended up being Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi walked in, and the first thing he had to do was unwind the 2 rate hikes that Trichet had delivered that year in 2011. They hiked rates twice in 2011. He had to cut twice almost immediately. And then he managed to address the debt crisis without buying a single bond. And I think when people talk about whatever it takes in that speech in July of 2012, whatever it takes, I think we've become desensitized to those words. The promise, the commitment of a modern central bank to be there, to back things up, to make sure that redenomination risk diminished. That was something the ECB under Trichet could not do. And President Draghi took on the Bundesbank, Tom, and he won. And I think that'll be his lasting legacy.
Really well said as well. And I would also suggest he did it with a template absolutely original for Americans to understand the fractious linkage of monetary and fiscal economics in Europe makes it original when he was doing this. It was not like it was for Chairman Bernanke. We'll have much more on this. We're an hour and 15 minutes away from the Draghi press conference. Right now, you either love him or hate him. Gordon Johnson with us for a few minutes here. On Tesla, the market is thumb up. Mr. Johnson of GLJ Research is less than thumb up. Gordon, just because the time is so short, what is the single distinctive accounting feature that still gives you pause about Fortress Musk?
Yeah, I think, with respect to accounting, I think it's the cash flow, and specifically just under $400 million in free cash flow, but accounts payable up $334 million, and also the capex. Right? If you look at their guidance, they gave just about a month or two ago for capex. They were guiding them roughly $600 million. They came in at $200 million.
Okay, so they took $400 million out of capex. Free cash flow. If you can adjust that to what mere mortals would report, how far down would free cash flow come?
It would be negative. I think, it would be roughly, 100 to 200 million negative in free cash flow. So, yeah, that's where we'd be.
Gordon, didn't we see a similar story 12 months ago?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Didn't we see a similar story with Tesla 12 months ago?
Exactly. That is a great point. We saw the exact same thing. But here's the thing. Their earnings this time around, right, it's roughly half of what they did in Q3 of 2018. And also, guys, keep in mind, they cut their full-year guidance, right? Their full-year guidance was 360 to 400,000 cars. They're now saying they're aiming to do above 360,000. Revenue growth down roughly 8%, and yet they're trading at 400 times next year's earnings. These aren't good numbers. This is euphoria.
So you'd sell this, Gordon. I know you'd sell this. You've had a sell on the stock forever since I've known you. Talk to me about when this starts to go wrong again and what you're looking for in the coming few months.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we're looking for in the coming few months is, China sales, right? So their big growth opportunity, based on what they're saying, is in China, right? China EV sales were down roughly 27% in September after falling 16% in August. Tesla is looking to sell 150,000 cars per year. Right now, demand for their cars there is roughly 40 to 50,000 cars per year. So we're looking to see trends in China. I think that's going to determine the way this thing goes. I think that'll be the next negative catalyst.
Too short a visit. We got to get you in the studio, Gordon, to give us a much longer view.
Thanks,
Mr.
Gordon.
Johnson, GLJ Research, and I was talking to him earlier, and he's just the dynamic numbers he's got in the accounting or something.
Stock's flying though this morning.
Flying 301, 302
is that the mother of all short squeezes right now? Up 18%.
Yeah, I would guess that. What I would say is there's massive support at $200, and we're nowhere near that this morning. Futures up 6, Dow futures up 35. We're having fun. We hope you are too. John Farrell and Tom King. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Shares of Twitter are falling in pre-market trading. The company reported quarterly revenue and gave a sales forecast that fell far short of Wall Street estimates. Twitter said privacy issues involving its advertising business will continue to weigh on its performance. Stock futures still pointing to a higher open this morning. S&P futures up 3, NASDAQ futures up 34, Dow futures up 23. NYMEX crude down about 0.5% at $55.71 a barrel. Drug distributor Reckitt Benckiser has agreed to a $700 million settlement with 6 U.S. states over claims that the company improperly marketed and promoted the opioid addiction treatment Suboxone. The states involved in the deal are New York, California, Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, and Washington. Overseas, European markets are higher after Asian markets also rose today. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/Cs.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living, reinventing renting.
They don't chant your name when you give blood or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
So it's not fair. Self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge. Literally, a blueberry falls out the bag. And it's going, thanks for getting assistance. You need assistance. And now you've got to wait there for hours because everyone else is moving things. It's just not fair.
If you want fair, you want fibre broadband from TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, alright.
Do you remember picking out your engagement ring in the jeweller's window? Or choosing your first home? Or deciding the names of your children? When it comes to the important choices in life, you've always taken the greatest care. So shouldn't the same go for which firm of funeral directors you use? After all, that's an important choice too. At Dignity Funeral Directors, we're like you. We also take the greatest care. Our name as your assurance will be there by your side every step of the way. Just look for the sign that says Dignity. It's on all our branches and on the Dignity website. Dignity Funeral Directors, taking the greatest care.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. For our listeners worldwide, we're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. Earnings in focus. One of the busiest days of earnings season so far in the United States. Shares of 3M down almost 3% after cutting its full-year profit forecast. Twitter shares down 19%. Third quarter revenue and its fourth quarter forecast falling short of analyst estimates. That's why shares of Tesla up 18%. The electric car maker posting a surprise profit. Shares of Microsoft positive 1 single percentage point. Sales and profit topping analyst estimates. Amazon and Intel reporting later this afternoon after the close. Bloomberg News has learned China is aiming to buy at least $20 billion of agricultural products in a year if it signs a partial trade deal with the United States and would consider boosting purchases further in future rounds of talks. And in 15 minutes from now, Mario Draghi making his final ECB policy decision. No change is expected. 45 minutes after that, we'll have a news conference in Frankfurt, Germany. A little bit more on that a little bit later. Let's get you some headlines from around the world now and say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Tom. Elizabeth Warren has edged ahead of Joe Biden after the two presidential candidates were essentially tied for weeks, according to a new Quinnipiac University poll showing her with the support of 28% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters. The poll released today shows Biden in second at 21%, Bernie Sanders is third at 15%, and Pete Buttigieg is at 10%. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said Turkey's operations in Syria risk the stability of the region. At a question and answer session in Brussels this morning, Esper said the U.S. withdrew troops from northern Syria when it became clear that Turkey was going to come across the border.
I was not about to put less than 50 U.S. soldiers in between a 15,000 plus man Turkish army preceded by Turkish militia and jeopardize the lives of our young service members.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Jonathan.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
John, to think the Washington Nationals were known as the team that could never win a postseason series. Now they never seem to lose a single game. They made it 8 wins in a row this postseason, 2 straight in the World Series, taking Game 2 in Houston last night, 12-3. Nationals scored 10 runs over their last 3 at-bats. Their 2 aces, Max Scherzer and last night Steven Strasburg, beat the 2 Houston aces, Garrett Cole and last night Justin Verlander. Game 3 is tomorrow night in D.C. Game 1 of 82 for the Knicks and Nets. They both lost. The Knicks in San Antonio 120-111. The Knicks had a 1-point lead going to the fourth quarter. Marcus Morris led them with 26 points. The rookie R.J. Barrett was impressive. He scored 21. No NBA player has ever had a debut for a team like Kyrie Irving had in Brooklyn. He poured in 50 points, but at the end of overtime, he fell down, got up, and missed game-winning shot, and the Nets lost to Minnesota 127 to 126. The Knicks and Nets face off tomorrow, Barclays Center. Redskins and Vikings kick off NFL Week 8 tonight in Minnesota. Drew Brees says he's ready to return Sunday for the Saints. For the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashak. We're done.
John Stashak, thank you, sir. We've had the sports, you've had the news. Here is the price action this Thursday morning. Equity futures are positive 0.2% on the S&P 500, up 5 points or so. In the bond market, Treasury yields through the curve, 2s out to 30s, coming in a single basis point on the 30-year at 224. The 10-year basically unchanged now at 176. And in foreign exchange, 12 minutes away from an ECB decision and a news conference a little bit later, euro dollar totally unchanged. This is Bloomberg.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene. Futures up 5, Dow futures up 27. Again, an hour, make it even 55 minutes away from the final press conference of Mr. Draghi in Frankfurt. Our Matthew Miller there, among others as well. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM report brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, a top 100 national university in the latest U.S. News and World Report. College rankings. Learn more at news.njit.edu. Here's Bob Moon.
Tom, Jonathan, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg took his case for a cryptocurrency called Libra before the House Financial Services Committee and faced a 6-hour grilling from lawmakers. We put together some of the highlights.
Is it a currency? Are you a bank? What is this association?
It's a very complex project, and as you say, it's risky.
Do you consider Libra to be money?
I consider Libra to be a payment system.
So it's like me having my money in Wells Fargo Bank.
You could think about it that way.
Okay.
Although we're not a bank, we're not applying for a bank charter. I think that the right analogy.
But that's the problem.
This is
Mr. Zuckerberg. That's the problem.
My commitment is that we're not going to launch the Libra payment system here or anywhere else around the world until we get the approval from FSOC and the other relevant U.S. financial regulators.
It's pretty hard to stop anonymous trading. Have I missed something there?
Congressman, I think that this is probably more of a policy issue and question.
No, but as your code currently exists, can you transact anonymously with Libra?
Congressman, it certainly would be possible to build a system that would allow that.
Mr. Zuckerberg, are you a capitalist or are you a socialist?
Congressman, I would definitely consider myself a capitalist.
Frankly, I'm not sure that we've learned anything new here.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle made it painfully clear to Zuckerberg they don't trust a company with Facebook's reputation to handle Libra. It's still unclear when or even if it will actually launch. That's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report. Tom, Jonathan.
Bob Moon, that was brilliant. John Farrow, are you a capitalist or a socialist?
I think if there were cards to hold, I'd be a card-holding capitalist.
I think so.
What are you?
Same thing. I mean, there we go. 5 things you need to know to start your day. Brought to you always by Portfolio Analysts, powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors use Portfolio Analysts to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Download for free at ibkr.com/PA. Mr. Draghi, I want to look forward. What's his goal to set the table for December 12th?
I think it's really tough for Christine Lagarde when she takes over. If Mario Draghi, when he took over, the toolkit was padlocked, when he exits, the toolkit is totally emptied. And I think that's the story of Draghi's tenure at the ECB. If the first half of his tenure underlined the power of the ECB, the second half highlighted its limitations, and the battle for a broader policy effort will go on with Christine Lagarde.
Kate Moore, plus from BlackRock, really on the market. Corporations will adjust. I mean, that's the history, isn't it?
We talked about this with Kate in some detail. Look, sometimes the information content and how a market responds to data is just as important as the data in and of itself. And what I mean by that, take this morning as an example. The PMIs in Europe, ugly, but they've been ugly all year. Look how the market started to respond to that information now.
Adjust.
The market adjusts. And the market's starting to look through it. And I think if you've got a take that we've seen off the worst of it, You got a little bit more fuel for that take this morning and in the last 24 hours. I imagine that take will be tested, though, in the next month once again.
And Microsoft, I think, has been underreported. That was something. The real yield, what's your angle? Seriously. You go into Friday, you're
so
in
I think
deep planning.
we basically
Your staff is what, 50?
It's about...
Do you need to do 2 conference calls?
It's about 5 to 10, Tom, and 5 are part-time. We'll have the editorial meeting a little bit later. Look, we'll pick up on what Kate Moore said, and I'll apply it to the bond market. Are we starting to look through some of this bad data now? Treasury yields bottomed out September 3rd, 143 intraday. That was your low for the year.
John's so knowledgeable on American baseball. I got to bring him in with Michael Barr so I'm not embarrassed. Michael Barr, Bloomberg Business of Sports. What a shock. Low ratings. I get it. Small markets. But is it more than that?
Well, yes, Fox did get a decent rating, but it wasn't anything that they thought it was going to be. In fact, it was, 11% down from what it was the previous year?
Second lowest ever, whatever. But is it a small market justification, or is there more going on than that?
I'm sure Fox wishes that they had Los Angeles
Yankees,
against
Dodgers.
the Yankees,
I mean, they do, but in the interviews you do with Scott Soshnick and Evan Noble Williams, I mean, what is the state of interest in the postseason of baseball?
Well, the average viewer on TV is like, about 56, 57. And you're not appealing to a younger audience. So that's part of the problem.
Part of it, John, is it's right when you hit the bars. The first pitch is like 9:02.
We always do sports segments on this program and never actually mention the scores. The Nats are winning, right?
Yes, they're up 2 games.
You've seen every pitch. Come on.
Can we get to the bottom line? Just get to the headline.
12-3 was the final in game.
Really? 12-3.
Yes, they had a 7th inning that the Astros won it back.
6-0 in the 7th. I saw that.
Listen to you. Yeah, one team.
I'm impressed.
But the Stros could come back, right? I mean, they're the best team in baseball.
They got to go. They're going now Friday to play in Washington. So this is going to be hard.
Statistically, it's hard, but they're like the one team that could do this, right?
They could do it, but it's going to be hard.
How old is the Washington Nationals? How old is that team?
Well, they used to be the old Montreal Expos.
Yeah, they were the Montreal Expos.
When did they become the Washington Nationals?
They moved down there, and ages ago in our youth, it was the Washington Senators. And
Senators.
Ted Williams was the manager of the Senators.
Why do these teams move around so much?
Oh, let's go to the business of sports. Let me guess.
It's all about the
money.
coin.
It's all about the coin.
Yeah.
I don't see this in football.
The NHL.
My football, Michael Barr.
I'm so sorry.
The
Please
NHL expanded because they needed the fees from expansion.
Should we start a franchise?
I think we should. Jeff Finnick, maybe Tampa's for sale. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
With the Bloomberg.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. If you buy items from EU suppliers or sell to EU customers, there'll be new requirements affecting businesses of all sizes. You'll need an EORI trader number and know how to make a customs declaration. You'll also need to make sure you have the right supporting documents for the goods you buy and sell. Find out more about how to prepare. Follow the step-by-step guide at gov.uk/Brexit-traders.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
People have always told me I can be a bit wary of modern things.
Very true.
So, when Jane suggested selling the house with purple bricks, I weren't happy.
No, you weren't.
You see, I don't like technology. I don't like the internet. I don't like moving house. I don't like their adverts. I don't like purple.
Luckily, I don't listen to him, and our estate agent, Emma, were perfect. She gave us her actual mobile number. She was always available.
Fine, they were great. Still don't like purple.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces say Turkey and its Syrian rebel allies have launched a large attack targeting 3 villages this morning despite a truce. The Kurds are urging the United States to intervene immediately to stop the attack. House Democrats won't let yesterday's invasion of House Republicans into a closed-door impeachment inquiry hearing deter them from getting testimony, as Suzanne Malveaux reports.
House Democrats are eager to keep up the pace of the investigation. They'll continue to call these witnesses in the weeks to come. They will also work over the weekend. So Saturday, State Department official Phil Reker will be called to testify to answer a question behind closed doors.
Democratic leaders say they're looking at mid-November to begin the public phase of testimony. The power is turned off again for 500,000 Northern California residents, a wildfire prevention move. The Washington Nationals now own a 2-0 lead in the World Series, beating Houston last night 12-3. Stock futures up a blip this hour. I'm Michael Toscano.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This deal, what would it look like?
You're right. The others are here.
Is he doing a good job, you think?
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and crossing the Bloomberg, the European Central Bank keeping its benchmark rate at 0%. We'll have all the details straight ahead on Bloomberg surveillance. Meanwhile, sources tell Bloomberg that China aims to buy at least $20 billion of agricultural products in a year if it signs a partial trade deal with the U.S. and would consider boosting purchases further in future rounds of talks. Twitter reported quarterly revenue and gave a sales forecast that fell far short of Wall Street estimates, saying privacy issues involving its advertising business will continue to weigh on its performance. Its shares down 20% this morning. S&P futures up 5 points. Dow futures up 34. NASDAQ futures up 44. The DAX in Germany's up 0.5%. 10-year Treasury up 1/32. Yield 1.75%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.25% or 14 cents at $55.83 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.2% or $2.80 at $14.93 an ounce. The euro 1.1128 against the dollar. British pound 1.29, and the yen at 108.63. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thank you so much. Again, we're 45 minutes away from what people say is going to be a snooze fest. I don't agree. Full disclosure. And Mr. Draghi will speak, and we will opine. We'll have the headlines and see if there's any market move. We want to give you context, and we can do that from, without question, the most emotional book on the euro I have ever seen. It was written 5 years ago. His negotiations for the movie rights were so tenuous. We're looking for the fall of the euro, Memorial Day 2022, John. But a gentleman from Denmark wrote a piercingly passionate book on the euro and on reinventing the eurozone. And chapter by chapter, he went through what a god-awful mess it was 5 years ago. This is the perfect guy to talk to about Draghi.
You were there for the book launch, weren't you?
I was.
When was this, 2014?
Yeah, 2014.
In and around 2014?
The party was 300-400 people. I didn't talk to him.
I didn't get an invite.
He was so large, I couldn't even talk to him at the party.
Walked away from Nomura, set up his own shop. Great to have him with us.
I just picked up 3 books and left.
Jens Nordvig, Exante Data founder and CEO. Good morning to you, Jens.
Good morning. I don't know quite what to say, but anyway, thanks for the intro.
Here's what I'll say. When's the next book? It was so good. When's the next book?
Writing a book takes a little bit of time, so I have to get approval from my wife before I'm allowed to write a second one.
8 years is up, Jens. 2011, President Draghi takes over the ECB. 8 years later, he steps down. What's his legacy?
So everybody says he saved the euro. He did have a very important contribution to ending the euro crisis. He had a very important contribution to sort of breaking new ground for the ECB, right? We had the Maastricht Treaty. It was supposed to be not legal for the ECB to buy any government bonds. And he made it legal, essentially. Not without, he didn't change the legal text, but the interpretation of the legal text is totally different now. And I think if we can think about it in very concrete terms, like think about Italy. Over the last few years, we've had tremendous political uncertainty. That was the main point of my book, that the next crisis was going to come from political uncertainty, right? And despite of that uncertainty, because there's such a belief that the ECB is there to provide backstop, we had limited tension in financial markets in Italy. We clearly had big moves up and down on BTBs, but it never turned into like a financial crisis dynamic. And that's because of the changes Draghi have done. That's his legacy.
Trichet let the redenomination genie out of the bottle. Can we ever get it back in?
So it all comes down to whether there's public support for the euro. So if you go and look at opinion polls, it's actually pretty striking that we have all this pessimism about growth in the eurozone, all the troubles that exist in the EU with Brexit and so forth. And then you ask people on the ground, do you want to keep the euro? In every single country, support for the euro is high, and in many countries at a record high. Obviously in Italy, support is lower than other countries, but support is going up again. So it is quite interesting, given all the pessimism that is out there, that the euro is kind of liked.
Part of your wonderful ability here is to figure out the legacy of all these people. You do this out of Aarhus, your academics in Denmark. Draghi is MIT. Draghi is fundamentally this twisted Anglo-Saxon feel. Do they revert back to a Trichet-Duesenberg old world ethos, or has he permanently changed the theoretical structure of historical Europe versus a more British or more American economics?
Well, I think that is a big question, and I think one of the reasons why we had such a controversial decision at the last meeting was that Draghi wanted to set the tone for the next 4 years as well. And he's done so with the forward guidance, where they essentially say they're not going to raise interest rates until actual inflation, not just what the ECB staff is forecasting, but actual inflation is getting to the target. It's quite an extraordinary form of forward guidance.
John, I'll say this, and I may be wrong, John, but the most thunderous, momentous headline in X number of years was that single headline 2 years ago where Draghi began to put a timeline on we're not raising rates. Remember that? He said, we're not raising rates till the summer of 19 or whatever.
He pushed the limits of monetary policy. In the end, I think the criticism will be that an argument of his for quite a while is that for rates to be high in the future, they need to be low now. They've been negative for 5 years. And I think the debate, even after he leaves the ECB today, will be whether any of this stuff actually works.
Yeah.
Has QE worked? Does negative rates actually work? Is he taking it too far? Has he taken it too far?
Yeah.
The jury's still out, isn't it?
So I think there's two aspects of this that you need to separate. So I think there's a financial stability argument. The Eurozone was incredibly vulnerable to financial crises before we learned that the ECB was willing to buy sovereign bonds. That part of legacy I don't think you can doubt. The other part of legacy pertains to inflation. And there, it's a much tougher thing to sell that he has been very successful. You can look at where core inflation is now after essentially maxing out monetary policy, and we're close to 1%. We should be close to 2%, right? So I think he's been incredibly successful in terms of reducing the risk of financial crisis. He's not been particularly successful in terms of getting inflation and inflation expectation up to the target.
The way I've told that story essentially is by saying the first half of his tenure underlined the power of the ECB. The second half highlighted its limitations. Let's push things on. President Lagarde, she's got a tough ask. A lot of people, especially on this side of the Atlantic, and I find it really interesting, I don't know what your conversations have been like with clients, Jens, but many people on this side of the Atlantic seem to believe that a President Lagarde can get European politicians to do something that Mario Draghi could not, and that's if you have the fiscal space, use it.
Yeah, I think there's this perception that she was in charge of fiscal policy in France, and therefore she has some kind of magic power to make sure the coordination between the central banks and the fiscal authorities somehow gets much, much better. I think it's a bit more complicated than that.
Were negative interest rates in your book?
They were not. They were not.
That's stunning.
Yeah.
That's just stunning.
It's hard to predict the future, isn't it?
It's not only the future, but it's hard to predict a complete shattering of a theory.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your Econ 101 book was in Denmark, but whether it's Begg or it's Dornbusch Fisher Stars or whatever, Mankiw, whatever, none of this folks were living is in those books, is it?
Like even if you think about debt sustainability, right? So you have this situation where you think, okay, if you have no growth, eventually your debt dynamics will run out of control. But if you have negative rates, that's not obvious anymore either, right? So everything gets turned on its head.
Quickly here, Jens Nordvig on the fiscal space.
So there is something going on in some European countries. There's something going on in Holland. There's something going on in France. What we're missing is a big shift in Germany, and they have constitutional limits. They need to find a different name for it. They need to call it climate investment and get around the constitutional limits to get a big push going. That's really sort of the hope at the end of the tunnel, is that we can find a new name for fiscal stimulus that can get around those constraints.
Euro target 111.23 right now, 12 months out. Come on. Tapes recording.
The key thing is global growth. If global growth can recover a little bit, the dollar will be down and the euro will be meaningfully stronger.
See how he did that? That's
very smart.
That's decades of work. I didn't get a number and I didn't get a timeline.
So think about it. When did we have peak happy talk? Peak happy talk, spring of 2018, for global economy and for global markets, spring 2018, right? Before things really started to break down. No, I'm talking about global markets and the global economy. The synchronized growth of 2017 into early 2018, euro dollar peaked out 125. Sterling 140 as well. So if things start to pick up again.
I didn't do the exact math, but the Draghi era is a 16% depreciation in euro.
Oh, we've had a massive move.
16%.
At one point, they were fighting to get it down because it was too strong. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They were good times, weren't they, Jens? When we're in and around 140, fighting to get it lower.
You're still talking to him? He didn't give us a number or a date.
Well, I'm trying to get a number out of him now.
Please, continue.
We came from 139.7 before the negative rate started, and obviously we traded below 110 very recently, so it's a pretty meaningful move.
See, still looking past. Can you get from T-1 out to T+1 here? I still want a forecast.
I think in a global growth recovery scenario,
please,
it's pretty easy to get the euro back up towards 120.
Okay, now we can move on. We can move forward. Jens Nordvig there. Can't say enough about the fall of the euro.
I tried to do it for him.
Superb book.
It's great to have him with us.
Okay, can we play some American music?
Is that what this is?
Mr. Petty, this is Bloomberg. Futures up 6.
Started out.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch.
Used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
What if your email let you see a project's entire history and not just the messages sent to you? What if everyone else on your team could see it as well? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Move communication from inboxes to channels in Slack. Instead of seeing a partial set of messages about a project, everyone in Slack sees exactly the same thing and moves work forward faster. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
It's time to do a bit of Debenhams with up to 30% off our favourite coats, knitwear and boots for the whole family and 20% off throughout home. Shop now in-store and at Debenhams.com.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money. And times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
Middle of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we're still seeing people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene. Thrilled you're with us. Yes, Mario Draghi in 30 minutes. Maybe you'll take a question on liquidity and repo. Coming up, the conversation of the day on repo, liquidity, all of the uproar of the New York Fed, and what we're doing with our major banks and the trust market, that short-term paper market. Truly one of the world's authorities will join us here. Bloomberg Surveillance with futures up 6. Brought to you by Cone Resnick. Check out Business of Baseball, an original MLB video series exploring the business side of America's pastime. Visit ConeResnick.com/MLB. Cone Resnick. Advisory, assurance, tax. John, what do you see on the screen?
Euro dollar, totally unchanged really. Had a lot of bad news thrown at it today. Once again, another round of weak PMIs. Euro dollar 111.21. Rates unchanged at the ECB. Rates to stay at a present or lower level until inflation nears the ECB's goal. That guidance remains the same. The ECB confirming bond buying will start November 1st. 20 billion euros every single month.
Is Germany in recession?
Some people might make that call.
Some,
the PMI data, Tom, does not look good. Hasn't looked good for a while. We can talk about someone that used to oversee the market operations of the ECB, the man that in this position would typically be executing the monetary policy. Yes. Really pleased to say that Francesco Papadilla joins us now, former ECB Director General of Market Operations, overseeing market ops through to 2012 at the ECB. Francesco, good morning. Great to have you with us on the programme.
Good morning to you.
A big focus at the moment on what the ECB can and cannot buy, and if they want to commit to 20 billion a month open-ended, where will they be looking? What are your thoughts on that at the moment, Francesco?
I think that the latest information we have on this is that they can go on for quite a while. Quite a while could mean 1 more year. They would not bump into the limits for the Germany, which is of course the biggest problem. So they do have the time to revise the 33% limit if they would see the problem coming.
There was a big debate a couple of years ago about would they go beyond corporate debt, would they start to buy equities, and that's ramped up again, Francesco. I imagine that when you were at the ECB in 2011, 2012, when you were executing the securities market program, did you ever think they'd be buying corporate debt, corporate paper?
Well, that was not so far away. We had been buying something similar to corporate debt, which is covered bonds. Covered bonds are issued by banks, so they are a private kind of paper, and we did that. When it comes to new things that they could buy, more than equities, which is a bit odd, I think. I mean, the Japanese are doing it, but I think it would be more likely that they would buy bank loans, even without securitization. Bank loans are already in the collateral pool of the ECB, and in a way, that's the only asset which is in the collateral pool that is not bought outright. So, if I have to think of a new asset, I think of bank loans.
Francesco, how controversial would that be for the ECB to buy the loans of banks that they also have to regulate?
Well, I think that would be of an order of magnitude easier than buying bank bonds. Because if you buy bank bonds, you buy the credit of the bank. If you buy bank loans, you buy the credit of the customer of the bank, I mean, of the borrower. So I think it would be easier from this point of view because you don't buy the credit of the bank.
Francesco Papadia with us right now, folks, and we're just thrilled he could be with us. All you need to know, with a seminal effort at the ECB as Director General for Market Operations. Francesco, John and I could talk to you for an hour this morning about this linkage of Mr. Draghi, Mr. Powell, Mr. Carney into a nascent question about trust in the very short-term market. Just with a view from 60,000 feet, every official John and I have spoken to, including Lawrence Kudlow of the White House and Bill Dudley, formerly with the New York Fed, have said there's not a problem here. Is there a problem brewing or existent in that very short-term overnight trust market?
I don't see that as a pressing problem, quite frankly. I see the main problem, in my view, is that central banks are close to having exhausted their ammunition, unless they invent something new, which they could. But unless they do invent something new, the unconventional measures, in my view, are close to having finished their effectiveness. So I don't see a problem of trust. I see a problem of effectiveness, if you wish.
The vectors, if you take a log chart where slope matters, folks, and you look at the build-out of the balance sheets of the different major central banks, do you have confidence in the mathematics and calculation of the appropriate level of assets at any given central bank?
Well, I think that the mathematics of this, as you say, has changed a lot and keeps changing. Because what used to be normal in 2007, 2008 is no longer normal, and there is no prospect that we will get back to normal. And the repo story in the United States is very meaningful in this. It's throwing a lot of information for all central banks about the liquidity demand by banks. And this forces, in a way, to think again about this issue.
Well, it's almost, and I say this with great respect for your public service, it's almost learn as you go. What are you learning as you go from the data, John, can I say day by day, almost, from the New York Fed? What are we learning with each of these auctions and each of these processes? Well, exactly that we have in the United States, but that applies to Europe and Japan as well, the level of reserves that banks have with a central bank is a large multiple, but a very large multiple of what it was before the crisis. And everybody thought that was quite enough to satisfy the demand of liquidity by banks. I mean, what is happening in the repo market, I've seen that the Fed came in with even larger operations just today, shows that we are not understanding exactly what is determining the demand for liquidity by banks. We have a view that regulation has something to do, uncertainty has something to do, but I don't think that we have a full view. So what we are learning is what is behind the liquidity demand of banks.
Francesco, just a final question from me to wrap up this interview. You left the ECB shortly after President Draghi took over the presidency of the European Central Bank. A final word from you on his legacy.
Well, I always stress that there is more continuity than people think between different presidents. For instance, I think that the difference between Draghi and Trichet has been vastly exaggerated, and I find confirmation of this in the fact that Trichet recently came with a strong defense of Draghi's ECB. So, in thinking about the legacy of Draghi, I think one should see that on a line that in a way started with Trichet, that was the first one to take unconventional measures, and continuing was developed by Draghi more than any kind of rupture between the two. Let me just add that after having left the ECB, I'm now with Bruegel as a senior fellow.
Yeah, I should say that. I'm so sorry I did not mention that earlier.
You can blame me for that, Francesco. Francesco Papadea of Bruegel, and also formerly the ECB Director General of Market Operations. Always great to get Francesco's thoughts.
Who booked this? Jens Nordvig?
Fantastic, isn't it?
Mr. Papadea?
Next up on the program, Gertrude Gugerell, formerly of the ECB board. So a lot more coming up, Tom.
Did you do this?
I didn't do this. Your people actually did this.
My people
Your
did this?
people did this, not my people.
See how he does that, Michael Barr? It's my person. I have a staff of 1. Pharaoh's got like an entourage of 50 people. My people is my person.
I don't even have 1.
Really?
I'm impressed with both of you.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
Very diplomatic, Michael. Thank you.
Call me Mr. Switzerland.
This is really important, folks. Seriously, these guys that do operations at these central banks, they don't get the glory. They don't get the press conference. They don't get the fancy speeches. But John, boy, are operations important.
Yeah, I think the best sort of parallel, I guess, between Francesco's job at the ECB and the Fed is the job Simon Potter used to do at the New York Fed, overseeing market ops for the New York Fed, executing the market operations of the central bank.
Like actually making it go. Futures advance up 7, Dow futures up 62. You all know we are really in a tight range. I should point out, SPX with a close 3,004, rounded up 3,005. And that's a resilient equity market even within the boredom of the range. Sterling 128.95. A little light on the Brexit details today. I guess we're waiting to see what the Europeans do. Maria Tadeo in Brussels saying Mr. Macron is front and center, and got a few other people with him as well worrying about that extension. This is Bloomberg.
And now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, thank you very much. Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces say Turkey and its Syrian rebel allies have launched an attack targeting 3 villages despite a declared truce brokered by the Trump administration. The Syrian Kurds say thousands of civilians have been forced to flee the area, and they blame Turkey for the ceasefire's deterioration. Even before the newly elected leader of Ukraine took office, Volodymyr Zelensky is said to have told his advisors he was concerned about becoming entangled in U.S. elections. His comments came more than 2 months before the phone call that launched House Democrats' impeachment inquiry into President Trump. According to the Associated Press, Zelensky and May discussed how to handle the pressure. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Yield. I haven't talked much about yield. Of course, we're getting on for the real yield. John Farrell, 1 p.m. tomorrow. Sterling show planned. Yield in 1 basis point. Draghi in 20 minutes. This is Bloomberg.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Sean, tell us about your upcoming Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good bit.
Really? I never looked at it that way. Wow, you do your own stunts. Wait, that's my line. See Farmageddon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, as part of your year of endless adventures with Meerkat movies. Oh, spoiler alert. You just gave away the ending.
Qualifying purchase required. Tuesdays or Wednesday. Participating cinemas. Standard ticket only. Cheapest ticket free. One membership for 12 months. Conditions apply.
This is not just a pumpkin. This is an M&S Halloween pumpkin. Ready to carve spooky faces for scaring witches, werewolves, and your neighbours. And the price has been carved to a scarily low 65p. This is not just food. This is M&S food. Offer ends 31st of October. Selected stores only. T's and C's apply.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann on Daybreak Asia.
Tesla stock is jumping in late trading after a surprise by posting its first profit in almost a year. Joining us now is Tiger's financial partner, CIO Ivan Feinseth. Give us a breakdown of what you think the numbers look like.
They're profitable, and they opened the Shanghai, China factory, which opens to them the world's largest car market and also the largest electric car market. They still increase production, and even though they missed their goal of, I think, 100,000 cars, they still came pretty close.
Is it a concern that revenue, though, is slowing? Does that say something about where Tesla's growth can come from in the future?
Well, I don't think it's slowing as much as the mix is now shifting more toward the 3, which is a lower priced car than the S. And the next big thing for them will be the Y.
They kept emphasizing how cheap it is to make those Model 3s in China. Should we be a little bit more concerned about the pressure on margins as they gravitate towards the lower price models?
I'm not that concerned about margins. I know overall a lot of people on Wall Street look at gross margin. I don't think gross margin is as important as the net margin. But that I think will come as they continue to increase the operating efficiency of the company and also amortize their operating costs over more and more cars.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street, and futures are higher this morning. Let's go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. That's right. U.S. futures are trading higher and are holding steady since the last time we spoke, with Dow futures up 50 points. S&P's gained 6, while NASDAQ futures climbed by 47. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.75%. Gold is little changed, while European markets are climbing, led by gains in the U.K. And note the ECB kept rates unchanged. Back in the U.S., a busy day on the economic front. At 8:30, durable goods orders and initial jobs claims. At 9:45, market U.S. manufacturing and services PMIs. At 10 o'clock, new home sales. And at 11 o'clock, the Kansas City Fed. After the bell last night, Microsoft revenue beat the highest estimates. Tesla reported a profit in Q3. Shares are up 18% in the pre-market, and eBay is down 8% pre-market after its numbers. Regarding some of the earnings this morning, Dow EPS beat the highest estimates. 3M cut 2019 views, and Twitter is plunging 17% pre-market after their sales and forecasts disappointed investors. Wrapping things up, Ford was cut to hold over at Deutsche Bank, and Caterpillar's price target cut to 110 over at UBS. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thanks so much. Good morning, Boston, New York, Washington. Early morning, San Francisco. To all of you on Sirius XM, Channel 119. What we're trying to do here, and I think the team has done a great job of this, team surveillance, is give you some Draghi perspective, the history back, the where we are now, and the view forward. We've had two wonderful guests, and John, now we do it again with someone steeped in the Germanic ECB history.
Yeah, the Austrian Central Bank experienced their experience at the ECB on the board as well. I'm really pleased to say that formerly of the ECB, Gertrude Trumpal-Gugeral joins us now on the phone from Florence. Gertrude, fantastic to have you with us. We've reflected on the legacy of President Draghi. Let's talk about the task ahead for President Lagarde. What kind of ECB does she inherit?
I mean, the ECB has in these first 20 years achieved a lot, overcome the financial crisis, helped to recover the economy, but now the challenge is to find the right moment for an exit. At the moment, the economy is slowing down, so therefore it's too early to talk about an exit. But we see that Mr. Draghi has achieved a lot. More recently, there was more debate about the right policy mix. I think the ECB will have a debate about the strategy, a review of the strategy, and this is one of the first tasks of Mrs. Lagarde.
Gertrude, what are the conditions that you would need to see that would be sufficient enough to follow through with an exit? The Japanese have talked about an exit for 20 years. What would you need to see in the European economy to actually see that materialize?
I would say solid growth rates, sufficient progress on single market, on banking union, and also, let's say, readiness of fiscal policy to contribute to solid economic growth.
Gertrude, many people disagree with the latest round of QE. In fact, maybe this moves from President Draghi, his final act, was perhaps one of the most controversial acts within the Governing Council. Did you disagree with the latest round of QE? Is that something you were against?
I'm no longer a member of the Governing Council.
No, I understand that, Gertrude, of course, fully. Yeah. I've introduced you as formerly of the ECB, but your thoughts as they currently stand, is that a decision that you disagree with?
I mean, you need to have the full picture when you take this decision. I think it was very controversial to make an additional, let's say, rate cut. I think it is, it's important to think about the stabilization of rates and normalization of rates as soon as the economic situation allows it. Yeah, we are not yet there. It will take time. But the negative consequences of low interest rates are visible in the economy. You see it in the asset prices. You see it in the savings plans. So there is some fear in the public also that the policy is too loose. But I think for the time being there is no possibility to change it. But it's important to be aware of the negative side effects of the accommodative policy.
Now, Dr. Tumpel-Gugerell, thank you so much for being with us today. Gertrude
Thank you.
Tumpel-Gugerell of Austria, and the former vice governor of the Austrian Central Bank. And you hear there, John, something that is somewhat unfamiliar to American listeners. There's that Germanic that we associate with Axel Weber, Otmar Issing, with Tumpel-Gugerell. They have a decidedly different view than many of the 27 nations.
Yeah, more recently, the former governor of the Austrian Central Bank as well, Governor Ivan Novotny, a similar take from him.
I missed that.
A similar take from him as well. He's now left the Austrian Central Bank, but certainly that was his view too. Look, negative rates are still incredibly controversial, and they have been for the last 5 years when they got implemented at the ECB.
Can we state in the next 12 months, the first 12 months of Madame Lagarde, that negative rates will finally affect retail, individual Europe? Are we there? I don't think we're quite
starting
there
to
yet.
happen, but it's happening with the uber wealthy. If you have $500,000 in a bank account, yes, you're starting to feel it. But yes, the everyday deposit base, not yet. But I think inevitably, the longer this goes on, the more this will spread.
But if I bought Uber shares, I'm not wealthy.
Is that your take?
Uber wealthy.
Oh, Uber wealthy. Oh, nice.
Uber shares.
Nice. That's good. You're sharp this morning.
I'm just killing it.
You are on form.
I am on form. Why am I on form? 6 minutes away from Mario Draghi. There will be a press conference. We've got the screen up here. It's done very much like us, but Chairman Powell sort of comes out behind through a door.
He does, and he's not flanked by anyone. Actually, I like the ECB Bank of England model where they can bring out, say, their VP at the ECB. The Bank of England can bring out the chief economist, and if you don't like some of the questions, you pass them over to your colleague on the right.
Yeah. What is the difference in the energy of the press in the Frankfurt room versus Michael McKee's room in Washington? To me, there's a huge difference.
So I haven't experienced the Fed directly. I've experienced the ECB and the Bank of England directly many times, and I can tell you the tension now. I think the ECB is slightly less confrontational, a little bit more thoughtful. You get two questions. Draghi always answers them. Governor Carney is a little bit more combative sometimes. Not recently, but in history sometimes. That would be my experience.
Very good. Futures up 6, Dow futures up 40. Stay with us worldwide. Good morning across continental Europe. This is Bloomberg.
And I do appreciate you being around.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Investors are assessing the latest round of earnings, and Twitter shares are plummeting in pre-market trading. The company reported quarterly revenue and a sales forecast that fell way short of Wall Street estimates. Twitter said privacy issues involving its advertising business will continue to weigh on its performance. 3M is also lower and cut its profit and sales forecast as the global industrial downturn continued to pummel the manufacturer. Shares of Tesla, though, are higher. CEO Elon Musk delivered positive earnings that surprised investors and said he was ahead of schedule on a new plant and the crossover Model Y. This Sunday, United Airlines will start to fly customers on a new regional jet crafted to the airline's exact specifications. The plane features extra amenities, including 10 first-class seats. By putting premium seats on small regional jets, United hopes to lure travelers from smaller cities to take off from its Chicago and Newark, New Jersey hubs. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living, reinventing renting.
It's time to do a bit of Debenhams with up to 30% off our favourite coats, knitwear and boots for the whole family and 20% off throughout home. Shop now, in-store and at debenhams.com.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
So you want to go to Manchester, but how? About time you invented your own form of transport. What are you thinking? A kind of seat on wheels? Great. With free Wi-Fi, fancy food and some tiny bottles of wine? Yeah. And this invention, it goes at 125 miles an hour with toilets? You mad genius. What is this totally original creation of yours? Oh, wait. You're going to kick yourself when you realise. Virgin Trains, proudly serving you for 22 years. Free Wi-Fi available across 88% of all journeys, excludes voyages.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Live from New York City for our audience worldwide, this is Bloomberg Surveillance. We can now head to Frankfurt, Germany, where President Draghi is about to address the press for its final time as the ECB president.
I am very pleased to welcome you to our press conference. We will now report on the outcome of today's meeting of the Governing Council, which was also attended by the Commission Vice President, Mr. Dombrovskis, and the incoming President, Ms. Lagarde. Based on our regular economic and monetary analysis, we decided to keep the key ECB interest rates unchanged. We expect them to remain at their present or lower levels until we have seen the inflation outlook robustly converge to a level sufficiently close to but below 2% within our projection horizon, and such convergence being consistently reflected in underlying inflation dynamics. As decided at our last meeting in September, we will restart net purchases under our asset purchase program at a monthly pace of 20 billion euro as from November 1st. We expect them to run for as long as necessary to reinforce the accommodative impact of our policy rates and to end shortly before we start raising the key ECB interest rates. We also intend to continue reinvesting in full the principal payments from maturing securities purchased under the APP for an extended period of time past the date when we start raising the key ECB interest rates, and in any case, for as long as necessary, to maintain favorable liquidity conditions and an ample degree of monetary accommodation. The Governing Council reiterated the need for a highly accommodative stance of monetary policy for a prolonged period of time to support underlying inflation pressures and headline inflation developments over the medium term. In particular, the Governing Council's forward guidance will ensure that financial conditions adjust in accordance with changes to the inflation outlook. In any case, the Governing Council continues to stand ready to adjust all of its instruments as appropriate to ensure that inflation moves towards its aim in a sustained manner in line with its commitment to symmetry. The incoming data since the last Governing Council meeting in early September confirm our previous assessment of a protracted weakness in euro area growth dynamics, the persistence of prominent downside risks, and muted inflation pressures. At the same time, ongoing employment growth and increase in wages continue to underpin the resilience of the euro area economy. The comprehensive package of policy measures that we decided at our last meeting provides substantial monetary stimulus, which will contribute to a further easing in borrowing conditions for firms and households. This will support the euro area expansion, the ongoing build-up of domestic price pressures, and thus the sustained convergence of inflation to our medium-term inflation aim. Let me now explain our assessment in greater detail, starting with the economic analysis. Euro area real GDP growth was confirmed at 0.2% quarter-on-quarter in the second quarter of 2019, following a rise of 0.4% in the previous quarter. Incoming economic data and survey information continue to point to moderate but positive growth in the second half of this year. This slowdown in growth mainly reflects the ongoing weakness of international trade in an environment of persistent global uncertainties, which continue to weigh on the euro area manufacturing sector and are dampening the investment growth. At the same time, the services and construction sectors remain resilient despite some moderation. The euro area expansion is supported by favorable financing conditions, further employment gains in conjunction with rising wages, the mildly expansionary euro area fiscal stance, and the ongoing, albeit somewhat slower, growth in global activity. The risks surrounding the euro area growth outlook remain on the downside. In particular, these risks pertain to the prolonged presence of uncertainties related to geopolitical factors, rising protectionism, and vulnerabilities in emerging markets. Euro area annual HICP inflation decreased from 1% in August 2019 to 0.8% in September, reflecting lower food and energy price inflation. On the basis of current futures prices for oil, headline inflation is likely to decline slightly further before rising again at the end of the year. Measures of underlying inflation remained generally muted, and indicators of inflation expectations stand at low levels. While labor cost pressures have strengthened amid tighter labor markets, the weaker growth momentum is delaying their pass-through to inflation. Over the medium term, inflation is expected to increase, supported by our monetary policy measures, the ongoing economic expansion, and robust wage growth. Turning to the monetary analysis, broad money M3 growth increased to 5.7% in August 2019 after 5.1% in July. Sustained rates of broad money growth reflect ongoing bank credit creation for the private sector and low opportunity costs of holding M3. The narrow monetary aggregate M1 continues to be the main contributor to broad money growth on the components side. The growth of loans to firms and households remains solid, benefiting from the continued pass-through of our accommodative monetary policy stance to bank lending rates. The annual growth rate of loans to non-financial corporations increased to 4.3% in August from 4% in July, while the annual growth rate of loans to households remained unchanged at 3.4% in August. The Euro Area Bank Lending Survey for the third quarter of 2019 indicates a slight easing of credit standards and increasing demand for loans to our households, while demand for loans to firms remained broadly stable. Our accommodative monetary policy stance will help to safeguard favorable bank lending conditions and will continue to support access to financing, in particular for small and medium-sized enterprises. To sum up, a cross-check of the outcome of economic analysis with the signals coming from the monetary analysis confirmed that an ample degree of monetary accommodation is still necessary for the continued sustained convergence of inflation to levels that are below but close to 2% over the medium term. In order to reap the full benefits from our monetary policy measures, other policy areas must contribute more decisively to raising the longer-term growth potential, supporting aggregate demand at the current juncture and reducing vulnerabilities. The implementation of structural policies in euro area countries needs to be substantially stepped up to boost euro area productivity and growth potential, reduce structural unemployment, and increase resilience. The 2019 country-specific recommendations should serve as the relevant signpost. Regarding fiscal policies, the mildly expansionary euro area fiscal stance is currently providing some support to economic activity. In view of the weakening economic outlook and the continued prominence of downside risks, governments with fiscal space should act in an effective and timely manner. In countries where public debt is high, governments need to pursue prudent policies and meet structural balance targets, which will create the conditions for automatic stabilizers to operate freely. All countries should intensify their efforts to achieve a more growth-friendly composition of public finances. Likewise, the transparent and consistent implementation of the European Union's fiscal and economic governance framework over time and across countries remains essential to bolster the resilience of the euro area economy. Improving the functioning of economic and monetary union remains a priority. The Governing Council welcomes the ongoing work and urges further specific and decisive steps to complete the banking union and the capital markets union. And now we are at your disposal for questions.
Mario Draghi in Frankfurt, we welcome all of you to Bloomberg Radio for his final press conference, a final set of questions, always an informed set of questions. Let's listen in.
The IMF just at their last meeting raised concerns about the effects of low interest rates on the financial system. So my first question would be, what makes you so confident that more of negative rates and quantitative easing or asset purchase program is doing more good than harm? And my second question would be on your legacy and whether you feel it's being tarnished by the recent discussion, which were unusually public, about the rift in the Governing Council and the disagreement about the policy action taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The IMF didn't say that negative rates are ineffective. As a matter of fact, the overall assessment of negative rates is generally positive. For us, it's very positive. It's been a very positive experience. Negative rates have stimulated the economy, have affected positively employment, and so all in all, we're exactly in the direction we wanted them to be. But the IMF also raised concerns about potential side effects of negative rates very negative for a long time. The discussion didn't go into too much detail, but we are also aware of that, and we are monitoring these risks. I should say that so far, first of all, we should distinguish different categories: banks, insurance companies, pension funds, and other intermediaries. The overall assessment has been clearly positive. In other words, the improvements in the economy have more than offset negative side effects from low rates. But it's the fact that we are monitoring constantly this is shown by our decision in early September of introducing a tiering system, which basically partly compensates the banks from the negative rates. Now, your second question, frankly, the answer is no. And we have discussions. Everybody has discussions. All jurisdictions have disagreements when monetary policy decisions come to be discussed. And these disagreements are often made public, often they are not. So I think it's not been the first time. So I've taken this as part and parcel of the ongoing debate and discussions. Thank you.
Ms. Bufacchi?
Isabella Bufacchi from Sole 24 Ore. I have two questions, Mr. President. The first one is about the fact that the Governing Council tasked the relevant Euro system committees with examining options for the size and composition of potential new net asset purchases. Taking into account eventual committee's options, and even if the Governing Council did not discuss this topic, given that the markets give the APP and firepower crucial, what is your opinion on the options that could be considered in enlarging the APP? And my second question is looking forward. What do you see are the main risks from your risk radar that you can foresee for the European economy and for the financial markets? In other words, what should we all worry about the most on the short-term and long-term horizon? Thank you.
Thank you. Since you're going back to the issue of voting and committees, let me just give you a few highlights. First of all, and I will read sentences from the public account, the account you've seen. So first, all members agreed that the further easing of monetary policy stance was warranted. Okay. Then we had an open discussion about the choice of instruments best suited to address current challenges. And we give account of these discussions. Then we start going bit by bit, saying what sort of majority was for each part of the discussion. And we say a clear majority of Governing Council members supported the broad package of measures that was ultimately decided upon in September. A large majority of members agreed to change the modalities of the new series of TLTROs. All members concurred with continued reinvestment. Members generally agreed with the proposal to enhance the state-based component of the Governing Council forward guidance on interest rates. A clear majority of members agreed with the proposal to restart net purchases under the asset purchase program with the modalities that I've just explained. And a very large majority of members agreed with the proposal to lower the rate on the deposit facility by 10 basis points. Finally, a majority of members went along with the proposed introduction of the two-tier system for reserve remuneration. And this comes straight from the public account that you've seen. So no surprise that today, basically, the proposal of the chief economist, namely to maintain the monetary policy stance, went basically through, approved at unanimity. So there was no. So it's not surprising given these majorities. Now, coming to your point about the committees, let me again go back to the IS in July, where we tasked the committees with examining options, including ways to reinforce our forward guidance on policy rates, mitigating measures such as the design of a tiered system for reserve remuneration, and options for the size and composition of potential new asset purchases. This is the introductory statement in July. So, and then we have already gone through this on other occasions, but the function of the committees is to provide technical advice to the Governing Council. And that's what they did. And then the Governing Council, of course, decides as it deems appropriate. It's not the first time that the Governing Council has a different mind. It's happened many other times. So no surprises there. And it's all, in a sense, confirmed by the maintaining the monetary policy stance today. What are the main risks? Well, the main risk from all viewpoints, but especially also from a financial stability viewpoint, is a downturn in the economy. And it's whether it's global or it's Eurozone, but that's, I think, would be the main risk from all viewpoints, from the side of convergence of inflation to our objective, obviously from the angle of maintaining a high level of employment and of economic activity and of a nominal wage growth as we are seeing today, and from the angle of financial stability itself, because clearly one of the great benefits that the banking sector and actually all players in the financial system had from this accommodative monetary policy was the extraordinary improvement in the quality of their credit, of their assets more generally, which comes with the recovery, which basically affected positively the profitability of the banking system. So, thank you.
Mario Draghi taking questions here in Frankfurt. We welcome all of you to Bloomberg Radio. We'll continue a bit more here to the top of the hour with Mr. Draghi.
Did Christine Lagarde take part in the discussion? Did she express views on monetary policy, and was she in full agreement with the ECB's policy stance? Second question is about what's been happening on the markets since your September meeting. Interest rates have gone up, market-based inflation expectations have gone down. Are you worried about this? Is the market misreading your policy, or are you comfortable with what the markets are pricing in?
Thank you. No, Christine Lagarde didn't take part to the discussions, but she was there, and without taking part to the discussions or the deliberations. On your second question, no, I don't think basically, well, let's ask ourselves, what was the main goal of the September monetary policy decisions? Was to cement the accommodative monetary policy stance that was embedded in the expectations as they had been affected by the weakening, regularly, continuously weakening medium-term outlook. And the Governing Council today, in the discussion, felt that this has been largely, very largely achieved. In other words, we saw the flattening of the yield curve. We saw the complete transmission of a lower DFR, deposit facility rate, into lower short-term rates. So what we have observed there, it's partly due to the fact that there may be a part of these expectations which was not warranted by the weakening economic outlook, which went, in a sense, beyond the economic developments, which might have been disappointed. But it's a very small part. But the second and probably more important reason for the developments we've seen is the overall uncertainty. In one way, in a sense, one has the sense that somehow the lower likelihood of a hard Brexit or a cliff edge has improved the overall situation. On the other, the uncertainty is still there. And by the way, on this specific point, it's true that it's improved in the short term. The likelihood of having a cliff edge has gone down. At the same time, the medium-term uncertainty is considered with concern. So, and the rest of the geopolitical uncertainty has continued to affect markets. So I would read the market developments in this way. I think actually, I don't think the market misread. Actually, the market showed that they understood perfectly well our reaction function. Thank you.
Ms. Laird?
Thank you. Mr. Draghi, the Bundesbank has recently said that they see a chance of a German recession this year. Given the discord on the Council, which you discussed earlier, does that eliminate or narrow your policy options where, I know you set rates for the whole of the Eurozone, but Germany as the biggest economy can't be ignored? Second question is I'm sorry, what's the question? What policy, given the discord amongst governing council members, do you feel that you have the same number of options should Germany pull other countries into some kind of a downturn? The second question is, given that central bankers have become less popular with their governments, and I'm thinking in the U.S. as well, we've talked over the years about the G20 cooperation on linking together monetary policy, fiscal policy, inter-country and intra-country. Given what's happening in the U.S., given the difficulties that central bankers are having with their own governments, can that cooperation be duplicated if there's another global downturn?
Now, your first question, if any, let me say this. Unfortunately, everything that's happened in September since our monetary policy decisions has shown abundantly that that the Governing Council's determination to act in a substantive manner was justified. We had all kinds of survey indicators, and now also some few, but some data showing further weakening of the economy. Just one number that I remember is the PMI in manufacturing is now at the lowest level since 2012. And another point of observation that I would say but everybody uses to assess the resilience of the economy is to look at what extent the weakness in the manufacturing sector is actually spreading to the service sector. And until a month and a half, 2 months ago, we could say the service sector was fully resilient, and now we're seeing the PMI in services also declining sharply in I think it was September reading. So, and then we have many other indices pointing into that direction. Now, regardless of the development in the German economy, I think that the decisions taken in September fully justify the continuation of an accommodative monetary policy stance and the maintaining of favorable financing conditions for the non-financial corporations, companies, and the small and medium-sized enterprises.
Mario Draghi at the ECB, we're going to leave him right now. He is not moving markets, even though there's some important thoughts there, including just the moment of Madame Lagarde being in the room at the ECB as she becomes acquainted with a very different institution from the International Monetary Fund. President Draghi making clear that Christine Lagarde did not participate, as he said, in the deliberations. Futures up 5, Dow futures up 45. Yields are a bit lower off U.S. economic data, maybe some of that European PMI that Mr. Draghi mentioned. Yields are now flat. I don't want to make too much about it. As you all know, trading on global Wall Street has been incredibly quiet, all in all, over the last number of days. The euro, 111.50, imperceptibly moving. Some of the pros are watching euro-yen, signaling stronger yen at the beginning of the conference, but now reverses fractionally stronger euro. And again, trust me, I don't know what Mr. Draghi would say the phrase is for splitting hairs in Italian, but it's that kind of data check today. Sterling, a quieter Brexit day, waiting for Europe, 129.22 as well. We've got a special treat coming up. We're thrilled to bring you Alberto Gallo of Algebris on Mario Draghi. This is Bloomberg.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The good news is the economy is strong. The bad news is the economy is strong.
Financial crises take a really long time to recover from.
Finance.
The strong job market's pulling people back in.
You can't have for very long, monetary union without a fiscal union.
Investment.
What we preach is extreme diversification.
It's hard to have sustained productivity without capital investment.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios in New York. We say good morning to all of you. Futures up 6, Dow futures up 47. David Wilson will be with us in a moment, really to frame an interesting earnings season. His tie, he walked in today. David's always got these wild ties on. His tie's got a beautiful red Christmas letters on it, idiosyncratic, which probably explains where we are here in earnings season. Right now, though, innovating to succeed is one Paul Sweeney. Downtown, you've gone south, Paul.
I've gone south.
You've gone south for October. You were the good people from Witham.
The good people from Witham, yes, they're having their 2019 Global Summit here in Midtown Manhattan, so bringing together some of their clients, some of the thought leaders to help them try to think about how to position themselves in the markets.
So we will have a good conversation here, and again, we've got a very, very important conversation coming up with Alberto Gallo in a moment. Futures up 6, Dow futures up 47. The yield, again, a little bit higher yield. I'm going to call it a churning market within the incredible quiet. Microsoft, Tesla, Twitter, And then there was 3M. You've got a plethora of places to start this morning, David.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. I mean, it's just a matter of pick 'em at this point. And we might as well pick Twitter because it is the most active stock in early trading. Sure. And, it's really taking a pounding, too. Just looking at where we are now, the shares are down 17%. The social media company posted third quarter earnings and revenue that were lower than analyst average estimates in Bloomberg survey. Twitter forecast another sales shortfall for the fourth quarter. So put that all together, definitely not good news. I mean, you mentioned Microsoft is one of 3 companies in the Dow Industrials that reported earnings so far today. Shares are up a bit more than 1%. These software makers' fiscal first quarter profit and sales, it actually came out late yesterday, I should note, beat estimates on growth in demand for cloud computing service Azure and for online versions of its Office programs. We've got Dow up 2.5%. The chemical company's earnings for the third quarter beat analysts' highest projection. 3M, though, which you also mentioned, down 1.5%. Manufacturers' third quarter revenue trailed estimates as sales slumped in Asia. 3M lowered this year's forecast for sales and earnings. I'm going to suggest, David, as you get a pause, that 3M is a bit of a train wreck over the last number of years. But help us with the new Dow. Where are we in the marriage, the divorce? The breakup's all done, Tom. So you have Dow, you have DuPont, and you have Corteva. There's Corteva. Yes. Is that a Dow component? No. Dow, no. Charles Dow, Dow Chemical, get it? I get it, Tom. A little bit of surveillance. Let's move on. Comcast is up 2%. The cable company's third quarter profit beat estimates as growth in internet customers accelerated from a year ago. The increase offset a loss of television subscribers. Tesla, talk about a stock that's active in early trading. It's up 18%. The electric car maker had an unexpected profit for the third quarter, even though revenue fell for the first time since 2012. Ford Motor, on the other hand, down 3.5%. The automaker cut its full-year earnings forecast because of production issues with the new Ford Explorer, and sales of that SUV fell last quarter, which hurt North American profit margins. You've got chip equipment makers higher, especially Lam Research, up 7.5%. Lam gave a revenue forecast for the fiscal second quarter to top the highest estimate. So you look across the industry, you see Applied Materials up 4.5% and KLA-Tencor up 2.5%. PayPal up 8%. The payment processor's third quarter profit unexpectedly rose and beat the highest estimate. PayPal signaled fourth quarter profit may also exceed projections, though a loss of business from former owner eBay will hurt results next year. Now, speaking of eBay, that stock's down 8.5%. The online marketplace's fourth quarter sales forecast trailed estimates. You've got some well-received numbers out of American Airlines. The shares up about 5.5%. Is a general statement. The airlines have done better. I saw Qantas after that mega trip. I believe they showed good numbers. I mean, in general, airlines have surprised, right? Right. I mean, you've got Southwest results out, and they're being well-received, too. That stock up 2.5%. Taking a quick look at what else is going on. Earnings-wise, we're seeing Northrop Grumman, the defense contractor, down 2%. Oilfield Services Company, Technip FMC, down 7.5%. Elias Data Systems, marketing company, down 7.5% as well. Baxter International, interesting case, down 6.5%. And they may have to restate 5 years of results because of an accounting error. Sport, David, outstanding, and we're only on Thursday. Maybe he gets a pause tomorrow, Friday and Monday, and into the continuing dance next week as well. In Europe, Mario Draghi, Paul Sweeney, really giving a bigger view now in his final comments. He says the ECB determination to reach its mandate always prevails. He has comments on Christine Lagarde. I'm searching for him. My eyes are failing me, Paul. Maybe you can help me out here. He goes to Brexit. I mean, even Mario Draghi's commenting, sees lower likelihood of no-deal Brexit. He says, he says Madame Lagarde had no input in governing council discussions. What do we do at the global meeting for Witham, Paul? What are the themes they're addressing?
I think it's a big issue for here. They're trying to get a sense on. They're looking at both the manufacturing sector as well as this, the consumer, with the state of the consumer as well. So kind of a lot of the things that a lot of our investors and listeners are thinking about as well as we think about the economy over the next 12 to 18 months. Balancing the consumer versus the manufacturing sector.
Joining us now in Europe, Alberto Gallo here with Mario Draghi. We need to say thank you to Team Surveillance for terrific ECB historical perspective as well. Alberto, you have the unique advantage of being first rate on fixed income, and you have an exiting Italian central banker as well. You knew him long before the ECB. Has Mario Draghi delivered the goods for all of Europe?
He has. There is a clear consensus that there's been a strong defense to Europe during a difficult time. When people thought Europe was going to break up. And that's the first achievement. There's also been 11 million jobs created. All central bankers have failed on the point of delivering inflation, and the ECB has not been successful there. But it is difficult because they have been fighting without the help of governments. So this is probably the change that we'll see with the new presidency.
Right.
More coordination with governments.
And he's mentioned that as well, the need for a coordinated mandate. Alberto Gallo, just for the short time that we've got you for today, we're talking the view from 60,000 feet with these central bankers. Should they pay a little more attention to the United States repo challenges? Or do you side with public officials that the liquidity in the trust market is essentially a non-event?
I think there is increased fragility in the financial system as a result of many years of dovish policy forward guidance. The IMF has pointed this out in their last Global Financial Stability Report. Investors have been doing more or less, similar trades, and there is the risks have shifted from banks to markets, including us as some asset managers. So I think central banks should be more aware in the future of the bubbles they create or they favor with policy, and try to control them. I think there is definitely a change from the Greenspan era where they purposely ignored them. I think there's more awareness already on that point.
Alberto, I've got to ask you a John Farrell question right now because he's getting ready for the real yield tomorrow, and that would be on the spreads of higher yielding paper versus lower yielding full faith and credit paper. How will that cut over the next year?
Well, before that, I think into year end, there is definitely a short covering trend, potentially a melt up from investors that were shocked by the volatility of last year and have been cautious. Now we see disappearing of tail risk like Brexit going better, U.S.-China negotiations going better, and these investors are chasing returns. So we see more compression between higher yielding paper and lower yielding paper into year end and potentially in Q1 next year.
Alberto, too short a visit. We thank you for joining us on this final day for Mario Draghi at the European Central Bank. That press conference continues forward right now in Frankfurt. I'm going to go here to the Bloomberg, where, of course, our headline team does truly world-class headlines. He's had, quote, no reaction at all to the various Germanic criticisms, including Mr. Weidmann. Draghi, and this is true, as he sat down as well, there was a certain lightness today, which maybe comes with a final fad line. Here's the important meeting. I can bring in our economist, Michael Barr, on this. Draghi has no set idea for his future, says, ask my wife. Would you like to
That's a smart man. That's all I'm going to say.
He's a PhD from MIT, and that's the headline he'll be remembered for. Futures up 6. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Paul, Tom, thank you very much. The NYPD officer who was fired in the 2014 chokehold death of Eric Garner is suing to get his job back. Danielle Pantaleo is suing the department and the police commissioner to be reinstated. Pantaleo's lawyer argued that his client's termination following an administrative trial was arbitrary and capricious. Laura Cooper, a senior Defense Department official who oversees Ukraine, testified before the Republican and Democratic members of 3 House committees yesterday as part of an impeachment inquiry into President Trump. About 24 Republicans stormed the closed-door room before her testimony. Lights went out across large portions of Northern California as PG&E began its second massive blackout in 2 weeks because of dangerous fire weather. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Futures up 6, down futures up 44. The VIX. Haven't talked about the VIX. That's how dead the market is. 13.86. That's a bull market. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
They're excited by business changes.
Are you finding the talent that you need?
They're thrilled by tech developments.
What would surprise people about where AI is going?
But what really makes Carol Masser and Jason Kelly happy is telling you about all of it.
This is an industry that is in demand.
Bloomberg Business Week.
What will society ultimately decide?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You knew the risks when you decided to drive drunk. There could be a crash. People could get hurt or killed. But that didn't stop you, did it? You knew you could get arrested. You could incur huge legal expenses, and you could possibly even lose your job. You were well aware of the consequences of driving drunk. But one thing's for sure. You were wrong when you said it was no big deal. Drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by NHTSA.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Rishad Salamat.
Let's get analysis of what we can expect from Indian equities. Sayan Mukherjee is a Nomura head of India Equity Research. Quite a state at the moment, the economy there in India. And equities are essentially holding their own. Question is, why? And where do they go next?
Yeah, it's been quite a challenging time as far as the economy is concerned. The economic growth has surprised everyone on the downside. Consistently over the last 4 quarters, the analyst expectations have not been met. And as we look at some of the high-frequency data, we don't see a revival immediately. So this quarter, the quarter ending September, can also record a weak data. So I think there are economic growth challenges in the near term. However, I think there has been a policy response. The government has reacted, and it appears that growth is a priority there. As you know, some steps have been taken, like corporate tax rate cuts. We could see more monetary stimulus going forward. And importantly, some of the other macro parameters which are important for India, for instance, crude oil and commodities are behaving well.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. U.S. stock index futures are rising alongside stocks in Europe and Asia as a raft of upbeat corporate results help investors shrug off more signs that global growth is losing momentum. Sovereign bonds fluctuating as the European Central Bank kept interest rates unchanged. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 6 points, Dow futures up 48, NASDAQ futures up 47, the DAX in Germany up 0.5%. 10-year Treasury, little change, yield 1.76%, yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.3% or 17 cents at $56.12 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.2% or $2.20 at $14.97.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1141 against the dollar, British pound 1.2897, and the yen at 108.59. And sources tell Bloomberg that China aims to buy at least $20 billion of agricultural products in a year if it signs a partial trade deal with the U.S. and would consider boosting purchases further in future rounds of talks. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate it. Real quick here. It is always a joy to speak with the gentleman, Tim Murphy, with Harvard football, of course, always on Boston radio for Harvard. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. Playing Princeton this weekend, 1 p.m. And what I noticed, Coach Murphy, off 4 big wins in a row for Harvard. To me, it's almost like looking at NFL scores. Does anybody play defense anymore in college football?
That's a great question, fellas. Whether it's the Big 12, where everybody seems to be able to score 40 points a game, or now the Ivy League, there's a lot of points being scored. Better athletes, tougher things for defenses to defend, and the combination means a lot of happy fans.
So, Coach, you've won 4 in a row here of that initial loss to the season. What do you like about your team right now?
Very resilient. We've been banged up at times at different positions, even early in the season, and we somehow resolved them, and the kids have played really hard. When we've had to really come through in certain phases, we've done that, and just an enjoyable team to coach, a young team, a fun-loving team, and a very tough, resilient team.
I look, Coach, at the grind day to day and game to game and week to week. You're getting into the emotional season. I think we identify Dartmouth football. We identify Yale football. What's the character of the small school in New Jersey? When you say Harvard, Princeton, what does that signify to go up against the heritage of Princeton?
Well, certainly a lot of tradition. Harvard and Princeton as examples, 2 of the teams in the country, 2 of the first teams that ever played football. Both teams have been playing it longer than just about anybody on the planet. So a lot of tradition, a lot of history, and a lot of respect.
So, Coach, tell us about, this Princeton team is undefeated. What kind of challenges do they present to you that maybe you haven't seen so far this season?
Well, we have 4 teams in the Ivy League right now that have 1 loss or less, with obviously Dartmouth and Princeton 4-0 and Yale and Harvard 4-1. But this team, as you guys alluded to, just seems to print points. They've had 65, they've had over 50, they had over 40, and they carried that over last year. But they got a great senior quarterback in Kevin Davidson. They've got a receiver that's leading the league, and Jacob Bermelin, and they play a very fast up-tempo offense, and they just find different ways to score points. Over the last 2 years, that's certainly been what they've done probably better than anybody in the league.
Tim Murphy, thank you so much, and good luck this Saturday. Coach Murphy with Harvard and Harvard football, 4 in a row. They win. They play Princeton 1 p.m. You can hear that. Bloomberg 106.1 Boston Newbury Report in Boston, and we welcome all of you nationwide as well as we talk to Coach Murphy about football. Football note, must pay attention to, and this is really odd, fantasy football, except the usual stars. It's like the expertise of finding those names that aren't as familiar. You can do that at Bloomberg News with our Richard Truman, who, Paul, 2 weeks ago looked like God. He got like everything right. And this weekend he's
mere mortal. Yeah.
Mere mortal.
But I like his value picks. That's where I go. He doesn't pick the stuff that you read about other places.
I'm going to pick Tom Brady.
Yeah. Exactly.
Paul, we're in the earnings season, and Kate Moore said something today that was profound. She is heated, plus with BlackRock, and she is around the theory I've been trumpeting, which is corporations adjust. Across all of our Bloomberg Intelligence work, what is the malleability, the changeability, the elasticity of CapEx? I mean, is it really that flexible?
I think it depends really, Tom, on the industry. There's certain industries that just have this maintenance CapEx that is a much higher percentage of, say, sales than it is in some other industries. You take a look at the telecommunications or the cable television. They have to continue to reinvest in their network. Other industries, it seems like it's more deterministic. They can pull it back, maybe a little bit easier if the top line's not there to support the cash flow. So it depends on the industry, but you really, obviously, the companies that get the highest return on their invested capital, those are the ones that tend to outperform over time.
The other thing you want to talk about, Paul, maybe we'll touch on this in the next 30 minutes as well, and you'll do it with Lisa Bramlitz, I'm sure. I was thunderstruck by Mr. Zuckerberg's testimony yesterday, and I'll be honest, folks, I barely listened to the words, but just his almost numbness or reticence to go through the executive process. I mean, what does he do at Facebook? I mean this seriously, folks. What is his day-to-day duties at Facebook?
It appears to investors and analysts that, he, like a lot of these tech companies, whether it's Google or Facebook or even you go back to Steve Jobs at Apple, the visionary. They have, the big picture view. And they're not necessarily the execution people, the X's and O's and the blocking and tackling, and oftentimes they are not the people you want to put in front of a camera. And that's why people like Google would bring in an Eric Schmidt, for example, after they went public, to bring an adult into the room. So one could argue very well that Mr. Zuckerberg is not the type of person that feels comfortable sitting in front of Congress. I'm not sure who would be, but he certainly is not one of those people, and it comes across like it does with a lot of people sitting in front of Congress.
Or sitting in front of the camera. Wait, that's what they say about me. Paul Sweeney at Witham. We're thrilled he's at Witham today. I'm Tom Keene, our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers in the studios in New York. Futures up 7, they advance. Dow futures up 52. Stay with us. Worldwide, this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures are higher just ahead of the opening bell. Investors are assessing the latest earnings. Shares of Tesla are higher before the open after CEO Elon Musk delivered positive earnings that surprised investors and declared that he's ahead of schedule on a new China plant in the crossover Model Y. And Microsoft sales and profit got a boost from demand for Azure cloud computing programs and internet-based versions of Office productivity software in the latest quarter. That boosted results above analyst expectations. Going the other direction this morning is Twitter. Shares plunging after reporting quarterly revenue and a sales forecast that fell way short of Wall Street estimates. User growth was a bright spot. The company added 6 million new daily active users for a total of 145 million in the third quarter, and that represented a 17% increase from a year ago. S&P futures up 6, Dow futures up 45. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
she says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Sean, tell us about your upcoming Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good bit.
Really? I never looked at it that way. Wow, you do your own stunts. Wait, that's my line. See Farmageddon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, as part of your year of endless adventures with Meerkat movies. Oh, spoiler alert. You just gave away the ending. Qualifying purchase required. Tuesdays or Wednesday. Participating cinemas. Standard ticket only. Cheapest ticket free. One membership for 12 months. Conditions apply.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, and the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Built on advanced technologies and 50 years of innovation, SEI offers asset managers a comprehensive and flexible operations outsourcing platform. Go to SEIC.com/IMS. Stocks are higher at the open. The S&P 500 up 1/3% or 11 points at 3015. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1/4% or 74 points to 26,908. And the Nasdaq's up 0.7% or 58 points to 8179. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.75%. The yield on the 2-year 1.56%. NYMEX crude oil up 1/4% or 14 cents at 56.11 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.2% or $2.70 at 14.9840 an ounce. The euro 1.1129 against the dollar. The yen 108.58. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Green on the screen again. Dow up 79 points. Mr. Draghi, I'm going to editorialize and say, without question, speaking longer than normal. He is still out there, maybe getting near the end, but really trying to take every single question. The mic is handed over to someone else in Frankfurt to ask a question. Some of the, recent headlines. He stresses the importance of central fiscal capacity. All successful monetary unions have a fiscal capacity. Narrows in on Greece. Good time for Greece. Greece must continue their reforms. All in all, we don't see bubbles. Gained a large headline as well, and notes that his time at the ECB has been very intense, profound, and fascinating. Mr. Draghi continuing. Someone who's been a student of central banks for years joins us now. He is Gary Shilling of A. Gary Shilling. As many of you know, I think his book, what I call the Blue Book, is absolutely definitive on good and bad deflation. The format is classic Shilling, one of the founders of Merrill Lynch Economics, chart, paragraph. And Gary Shilling joins us now for an update. I was speaking with Jacob Frenkel the other day, and we were talking about Volcker-like inflation, or the 21% inflation Jacob Frenkel had to deal with at the Bank of Israel and Governor. We can always say inflation's broken. But is it? And the inflationists are only worried about that. Have we actually, Gary, broken the back of inflation?
We've broken inflation until we get the next big excess demand in the world. I think inflation is simply a matter of demand exceeding supply. And that normally happens in wars. We saw that the last time was the Vietnam War with the Great Society programs on top of a fully employed economy. But today, we've had globalization in the meanwhile, which has opened up huge supplies around the world. And we've got an excess supply world, an excess savings world. It doesn't say that we won't go back to some kind of strains on capacity on a global basis in the future if we decide to colonize the moon or something like that. But I don't see it in the foreseeable future short of that.
Well, before Paul Sweeney jumps in here with them downtown, Gary Shilling, let us reaffirm the vector of interest rates right now. Are you willing to sustain your call for, I'm going to say, a sub 1% 10-year yield?
Yeah, I think so. My target for the 30-year was 2%. We got there. It's bounced a little bit above that in yield. But I still think we're going to 1% because we're in a deflationary world. And that's the one thing that the central bankers just have not been willing to accept. I don't know if they understand it or not, but they constantly believe in things like the Phillips curve. Low unemployment ought to engender inflation. They're worried about getting higher inflation. I think they want higher inflation because they're scared of deflation. They really want a cushion.
Fair.
Yeah.
So, Gary, one of the things, Tom and I, we speak to a lot of C-suite type folks, and they talk about, as they think about their business planning, a much lower growth environment going forward. Are you in that camp that says, GDP is really kind of a 1.5% to 2% type of number in the foreseeable future?
No, I'm not. No, the argument's there, and I think, like a lot of forecasts, it's a projection of the present. That's the easiest forecast, and that's the normal one. But it is true that we have slower growing labor forces around the world, the aging post-war babies, and so on. But I happen to believe that we're going to have a lot stronger productivity growth in the world, because today's new technologies, things like robotics, biotechnology, self-driving vehicles, they're really in their infancy. They haven't gotten big enough to move the productivity needle, and I think we're going to see a lot stronger productivity. So I would suspect we'll see growth more like 2.5%, maybe 3%.
So it's interesting, Gary. We've been listening to Mr. Draghi this morning talking about his outlook for Europe, and obviously there's been calls for fiscal stimulus on the part of certain governments in the European Union, namely Germany. Do you think that's something that is needed for the European Union?
Well, it depends on what you say you need. I mean, the voters are ultimately going to decide what's needed, and I think voters in the West, in G7 countries, are very, very upset because of globalization. Globalization has transferred tremendous amounts of manufacturing jobs from North America and Europe to China and other Asian lands. Now, the Germans have fared the best here. They still have strong manufacturing. But this has really resulted in zero growth in purchasing power for most people in the West for over a decade. They're mad as hell, and I think that is what fostered populism. And when you have that situation, if the voters ultimately decide, we want more action, then the governments are going to respond, and fiscal stimulus is one approach.
Gary Schilling with us. We're up 20 points in the Dow. I should note Twitter down 20%. Gets your attention, a 31 handle there as well. Many other stocks moving in a busy earnings season. Gary, I had someone today mention it in all good spirit. They said central banks want to create inflation, or they want to turn the vector upwards to some form of price increase. Is there any evidence out there that central banks can successfully reflate or increase inflation within an economy?
No, I think there's virtually...
I've searched
I don't think there's none. They tried it with knocking rates down to zero and then quantitative easing.
Yeah, but within history, come on, you and I are great students of history. I get that. My study of history is you don't reflate an economy unless it's, as you say, something like a war.
Yeah, that's what does it. Or if you get bursts of productivity growth, and that creates tremendous economic expansion. But monetary policy, it's the pushing on it's the old analogy, pushing on a string, Tom. The idea is if you pull on the string, tighten policy, monetary policy, you can slow the economy. But try pushing on a string, how much result do you get?
You know what the good news is? You get to come back. We're going to continue with Gary Schilling. This is a good thing. We got so much to talk about, including, seriously, his path-breaking work for Bloomberg Opinion on China. Schilling was like, 4 years out front of some of this trade dynamics on China. It's not something you associate with him, but there it is. He is the gentleman who was a catcher. And if you get the rock star Paul Sweeney tickets at Yankee Stadium, it is good to see how Joe Girardi manages. And the answer is he's done pretty good over the years. He took some time off here, but the gentleman from Northwestern maybe has a new job as well. Joe Girardi is going to go with multiple reports out there now and assist the Philadelphia Phillies back to respectability. I mean,
all Met fans are just like
Michael Barr with us for 10 seconds here. I mean, did Bryce say, I want Girardi?
I think he probably is happy about it.
I think so, too. Joe Girardi, forever Yankee, at least in the Keene household. Philadelphia Phillies. That's really interesting. It's more interesting than the World Series. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, this is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. Elizabeth Warren has edged ahead of Joe Biden after the two candidates were essentially tied for weeks, according to a new Quinnipiac University poll showing her with the support of 28% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters. The poll released today shows Biden in second at 21%, Bernie Sanders is third at 15%, and Pete Buttigieg is at 10%. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said Turkey's operations in Syria risk the stability of the region. At a question and answer session in Brussels this morning, Esper said the U.S. withdrew troops from northern Syria when it became clear that Turkey was going to come across the border.
I was not about to put less than 50 U.S. soldiers in between a 15,000-plus man Turkish army preceded by Turkish militia and jeopardize the lives of our young service members.
Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces say Turkey and its Syrian rebel allies have launched an attack targeting 3 villages despite a declared truce brokered by the Trump administration. Large portions of Northern California lost power again as the local utility implements rolling blackouts. PG&E is concerned about high winds downing power lines. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Talk.
Michael Barr, thank you so much. The Draghi era is over at the ECB. His press conference ends. Joe Girardi, Phillies' new manager. Mets lose. Top candidate. That according to the New York Post. This is Bloomberg.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
She says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things, and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Defense Department official Laura Cooper testified yesterday as part of the impeachment probe after a lengthy delay following several GOP lawmakers storming into one of the closed-door meetings. Suzanne Malveaux reports House committee members are being asked to work weekends as the inquiry continues.
House Democrats are eager to keep up the pace of the investigation. They'll continue to call these witnesses in the weeks to come. They will also work over the weekend. So Saturday, State Department official Phil Reker will be called to testify to answer a question behind closed doors.
The Commerce Department said today that orders for durable goods dropped 1.1% in September, the biggest setback since a 2.3% decline in May. British police confirmed 39 people found dead in a container truck near an English port were Chinese citizens. The truck driver now being questioned on suspicion of attempted murder, but no charges yet. I'm John Trout.
Deals, courts, and world leaders.
When you served on the National Security Council staff, is this something people model?
It's all in Balance of Power with David Weston.
How bad an attack was this?
Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and economic indicators are brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth number one in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. And we have breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. We go to Vinny Del Giudice with the latest. Vinny, good morning.
Hello, Karen. It's the market manufacturing PMI for an October. It's pointing to sluggish growth, rising to 51.5. Again, and that's an October number. September durable goods orders earlier from the Commerce Department, they were down, dragged lower by business equipment. Jobless claims, meantime, down to 212,000, close to a historic low. I'm Vinny Del Giudice. Karen, back to you.
All right, Vinny, thank you. And U.S. stocks are rising after a raft of upbeat corporate earnings outweighed concern that the global growth is losing momentum. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.2%, or about 6 points to 3010. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, little change, down 17 to 26,816. And the Nasdaq is up 0.6%, or 48 points to 8168. 10-year Treasury up 5/32, yield 1.74%. Yield on the 2-year 1.55%. NYMEX crude oil, little changed. It's at $55.97 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4%, or $6.20 at $15.0190 an ounce. The euro 1.1118 against the dollar. The yen 108.53. Microsoft is up 1.7% after sales and profit beat expectations, and Twitter is down about 18% after reporting quarterly revenue and giving a sales forecast that fell far short of Wall Street estimates. Meanwhile, Tesla shares are up 18% after it delivered strong results. This update brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Their margin loans start at 3.4% and decrease for larger loan values. Rates subject to change. Learn more at ibkr.com/compare. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate that. Paul Sweeney, downtown with them right now at their global meeting. That is a good thing. And with us in the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios is Gary Schilling. We've been talking about his wheelhouse as a claim, which is nailing disinflation, and even in some cases, particularly with what we've seen with goods, deflation as well. Any number of ways to go here. But we're going to do this because it's surveillance. We talked to Mitch Rochelle at PwC or Jonathan Miller over at Miller Samuel. And that, Gary, you've been looking at housing. And, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got Mitch Rochelle's opinion as everybody's moving out of the high-tax states as well. But you and your team have done a national study of, are we actually making any money at this? Are we making money in real estate?
No, we're not. And I don't think people have in the past. They think they have. Of course, a lot of what happened was that houses get bigger over time, so prices go up.
Now, Sweeney's living in 8 bedrooms, 7 baths, or something like that.
That's what
4 fireplaces.
That's what the realtors push. But if you look at what are called quality-adjusted houses, in other words, these are a series of the same houses sold through time.
Yeah.
So you're looking basically at the same house, and then you correct that for inflation.
Some of the Case-Shiller.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah, right. That has risen since the early 70s, 1% per year. Now you can.
No one listening believes what you just said. Say it again. Say it again.
They've risen 1% per year when you adjust for inflation and for the size of houses. Now you contrast that with 30-year mortgage rates, and again look at this in real inflation-adjusted terms, and they have averaged since the early 70s 4%. So what that says is that in actual fact, you've been losing about 3% a year on a housing investment.
But it's an enduring emotion as well. Is it just because unlike the equity market or the tangible markets like gold and that or Oriental carpets?
Tom, it was. I think that's gone. I think that went out with the subprime mortgage collapse. And you see now younger people who are partly out of necessity, but partly out of choice, are living in apartments. Huge number of rental houses that were bought up by investors, some even built for rentals. There are a lot of people even over $100,000. Wall Street Journal had an article on this that can't afford housing. I mean, it has really changed, but I think more and more people realize for the first time that on a nationwide basis, that house prices can and did decline.
Riley, is Paul there, or is he on the phone to his realtor?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to sell. Gary, it kind of goes to the issue of the consumer. We're talking about housing, and housing such a big part of the consumer's portfolio. How comfortable are you with the strength of the consumer here? Because we continue to get more and more disappointing manufacturing and business investment data, so it really puts even more pressure on the U.S. consumer.
Yeah, I am, and we've been writing about this in our monthly newsletter, both for this month and the one we're getting ready for next month. And I think one of the most interesting statistics was retail sales, which when they reported for last month, they actually declined with or without autos. And they have been trending down. But the consumer is the last holdout. Consumer is 70% of GDP. The rest of the economy is in recession. And I think that the pressure on consumers in terms of waning growth in jobs and incomes, and of course they have huge debts in many cases, I think that we're going to see the consumer buckle, and then it will be pretty hard to escape the idea that we're in a recession.
So, Gary, is that a 2020 event potentially, or perhaps even further out?
I think we already may be there, Paul. The thing about recessions is, with the delayed reporting and data and the revisions, which tend to be downward at the top, you never know where you were until much later. Right. If you look at the official barometer of recession, National Bureau of Economic Research, and everybody looks to them because no president's going to ever say we're in a recession. But they said in December of 2009 that we had 2008, that we had entered recession 12 months earlier in December 2007. And it was a full year before they said that the recession had started. Sometimes they don't declare the start of the recession until it's over.
Are you saying we're in one now?
We could be. We very well
What's
could be.
What's the could about it? I mean, what do you identify in Y equals, come on, physicist, Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX? What's the could part of that equation?
Well, the could be is we don't have all the data in to show it declines in real GDP, which is what most people look at as indication. Although the guys that call it, the National Bureau of Economic Research, they look at a whole bunch of variables. And this idea of 2 consecutive quarterly decline in real GDP is a shortcut. That's not their definition.
I know you're knee-deep in the trade war. I don't know if you're advising the Chinese or the U.S., but Gary, you got a great Chinese perspective. One final question here. We're in phase 1 of our trade agreement. Do we ever get to a trade peace?
We may get a truce in the war, but down the road, the real battle is over technology. China wants to be number 1 in the world. They've got a declining workforce for the next 3 decades because of the one-child-per-couple policy, so they need technology to grow. And where are they going to get that technology? Where have they been getting it before? From the West, stealing it are demanding tech transfer as the price of doing business there. I think Trump realizes that, and that to me is a longer-term battle, is over technology between the U.S. and China.
Gary Schilling, thank you so much. I should point out, Gary, Joyce Chang, who's esteemed at J.P. Morgan, not a forecast, but she models out a sub 5% Chinese GDP growth, which is extraordinary.
It's probably now about half the 6% reported.
Really? You're going to go with like a 3-4%?
And the tendency for them to overestimate when things are weak is obviously more than when they're strong.
Really? Oh, sure. Gary Schilling, thank you so much. Hey, Gary Schilling with us this morning. We should note he's at a 174 in the 10-year yield. That's a yield none of us thought we'd ever get to, and Schilling is like, yeah. Paul, there's so many stories here. Which stock is Paul Sweeney observing this morning?
I'm looking at the barbell, Tom. Twitter down 18-19%. Tesla, on the other hand, up 18-19%. So you look at these high beta stocks that have kind of cult followings, if you will.
Yeah.
And we just see the volatility quarter to quarter when these companies report numbers.
What's the revenue grab of Twitter? I'm on Twitter a lot. Everybody knows that. Thank you for the follows and the blocks. I greatly appreciate it. But where's the ads on Twitter? What am I missing?
The ads are there. The ads are there, and what they sell to Madison Avenue and to advertisers is the fact that you're there for such a long time. You spend the entire day. You go onto Twitter 8, 10, 15 times a day. You're engaged. And so they may not have the biggest audience in the world, i.e. Facebook, but they've got the audience they do have is super engaged, and that has value to advertisers. And it's been a tough sell, Tom.
But wait, in terms of data or of those people sending messages to me?
Just the fact that you're on the platform spending time, that's what they call engagement. That's what they sell as their secret sauce. It's been a tough sell, Tom, because the easier sell is, hey, I've got 1.4 billion users. Okay, I get it. I'll buy an ad, as opposed to saying, I've got Tom Keenan. He's on there all the time.
Okay, you have an avocado.
Sorry about that, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. Are you having avocado toasted with him?
They have a very nice setup for us here today, Tom. This is not hard duty today.
This is great. Okay. Paul Sweeney driving it forward with Lisa Abramowitz, and it is decidedly about Witham, and we thank Witham across all of Bloomberg Radio for their commitment and support to what we do in economics, finance, investment, and Riley insists I say international relations as well. Green and red on the screen right now. Mixed market, down -66. That's off those Dow earnings. I'm going to take a quick look at a small component. Excuse me here. That would be MSFT. Microsoft up 2 points, 139. It's buttressed up against record resistance going back to July. That's a pretty good statistic. 10-year yield 1.74%. Sterling, quiet Brexit day, 128.61. Mario Draghi's hero, 111.13. We are produced by Riley Dabbs. Ken Fellio, our global technical director.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are fluctuating in the early moments of trading as investors assess the latest earnings. The Dow down 16 points at 26,817. The S&P up 6 or about 0.2% at 3,010. And the Nasdaq up 48 at 8168. Twitter is plunging after reporting quarterly revenue and a sales forecast that fell far short of Wall Street's estimates. Company said privacy issues involving its advertising business would continue to weigh on its performance. User growth was a bright spot. Shares of Tesla are surging higher after CEO Elon Musk delivered positive earnings that surprised investors and said he was ahead of schedule on a new plant and the crossover Model Y. Fewer Americans are seeking unemployment benefits. Initial claims fell by 6,000 to a total of 212,000 last week. That's on the positive side today, but on the negative side, durable goods order activity fell 1.1%, more than estimated. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
Considering possibilities.
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
Planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning. We are broadcasting live from Witham's 7th Annual Global Summit at 2nd in New York City. Coming up, we'll be talking about the future of business at a time of huge transformations. Of course, we're also going to be talking about earnings with some big moves and Mario Draghi's swan song. But right now, let's head over to John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Fact Flash. John.
Yeah, and Lisa and Paul, the major averages, they are mixed in the early going. The drumbeat of earnings continues to beat along. 169 companies in the S&P 500 have reported earnings so far this quarter. 137 have had positive earnings surprises. And the S&P 500 right now up just a point, still flirting with a possible record. The S&P 500 is up 20% year to date. Well, despite that, Kate Moore at BlackRock Financial says there are plenty of jittery nerves out there.
I think the anxiety level and the fear that something could really reverse the market is much higher than it has been in any post-crisis period.
And weighing right now on the broader market, Ford Motor Company shares, they're down about 5.5% after their forecast cut, and shares of Twitter 17.5 points lower, 17.5% lower, falling the most in more than a year after their earnings disappoint. Microsoft sales and profit, they beat expectations. The chip makers rebounding on a positive outlook from Lam Research, and Tesla, of course, that's soaring after it reined in expenses and posted its first profit in almost a year. Well, the S&P 500 right now up about a point, 3,004. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 63 points lower. That's down 0.2%. We're at 26,770. The Nasdaq Composite Index 28 points higher. That's up 0.3% at 81.47. 10-year yield in the U.S. at 173. And Brent crude right now, the international benchmark for oil, is up 26 cents at 61.43 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trade day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, a top 100 national university in the latest U.S. News and World Report college rankings. Learn more at news.njit.edu. Markets are mixed here. We've got the Dow down 80 points, NASDAQ up 22 points, earnings all over the place. Let's get a sense of where the action is. We turn to Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at today?
Well, I mean, you're just looking at lots of earnings reactions. If you want to, just go through and see the best and worst performing industry groups in the S&P 500 among the 11 main ones, I mean, they're earnings driven. You've got technology stocks with the biggest gains on the one hand, and a lot of that driven by what John Tucker mentioned with Lam Research in semiconductor equipment. Those shares up 10.5% in early trading, and we're seeing gains across the group. Applied Materials up more than 6%, KLA up almost 5%, and you're talking about some of the best performing stocks in the S&P 500 right there. And on the other hand, this communication services category was created about a year ago for the S&P 500, the worst performer, and that's really Twitter, down more than 18% in the wake of their third quarter results. Earnings and sales coming up short of estimates, and people didn't like what they had to say about the fourth quarter either, because they were expecting another revenue shortfall. So you put that all together, and in the midst of all these earnings, and you're seeing some really extreme reactions again today. I mean, the story of this week is that you haven't had a whole lot of direction in the market, but you had a whole lot of direction in individual stocks as the earnings come out, tending to be positive, but not enough to really give the market an overall direction here.
Yeah, and when you talk about extreme moves, let's talk about Tesla, because it was the short burn of the century. That's what Elon Musk said a while back. He kind of made good on that today. I mean, just absolutely surging after a surprise beat, a surprise profit in their third quarter earnings. And right now I'm looking at Tesla bonds, and they are surging. They're almost up back where they were at the beginning of 2018. I'm just wondering how sustainable that type of move really is going forward here.
Well, that becomes the issue, especially with the increasing competition on that score by a whole lot of other automakers. But you look at the way Ford Motor's stumbling at this point. I mean, you can say at least that Tesla has a contrast there. Ford's down almost 6% in the wake of their third quarter results. And what's interesting, just think about China in terms of the contrast. Ford's selling over there, and certainly they're hurting a bit as a result of that. I mean, they've got issues with the Ford Explorer that they rolled out this year, but for the very least, I mean, China's not doing them any favors, and Tesla is just gearing up to start selling in China. I mean, Elon Musk talked on the call about how their new factory in Shanghai is already starting to produce cars, and it was, 6 months ago they started building it? So, positive surprise after positive surprise. I mean, that's really the story of Tesla, of course. Once they get going in China, then the question becomes, how well can they do, especially when we've seen the electric car industry, take a real hit there. You look at a company called NIO, N-I-O. I mean, that stock's down more than 75%. This is a Chinese electric car maker. So is Tesla going to succeed in a market where, Chinese domestic companies are struggling? I mean, that becomes a question. Nonetheless, though, for the moment, people like what they saw. The numbers and the shares are up 16% for Tesla.
Yeah, we can't say the same about Twitter. You reported that stock, the company reported disappointing numbers and disappointing guidance, as you suggested. And, the stock down 18%. I guess that calls into question once again, the fundamental question of, can a company like Twitter compete against the Googles and the Facebooks of the world for those digital advertising dollars? So I guess investors are going back and scratching their heads again.
Yeah, they are. I mean, what was particularly interesting in our reporting, they talked about how they're sort of backing away from allowing advertisers to use the data on their users in terms of targeting ads. And, of course, that's where Facebook and other companies have really been able to profit. I mean, because you see what you want to see as a customer, and it's something that's more appealing than just being thrown sort of any ad that's out there, which, at least in my experience, Twitter has been more like that. So the idea that they're in a position of going even further in the other direction, well, you can understand why the stock's taking a hit. I mean, there's real concern about what the business looks like. I mean, we know that there are a whole lot of people using Twitter, President Trump notably among them, but, having that kind of participation doesn't necessarily get you what you want as a business, and that's what Twitter's facing right here.
So, Dave, I know that you said that we really can't make any generalizations and that there hasn't been a direction given to markets by some of the volatility we've seen in specific names, but there have been a number of big industrials that have cut their forecasts. I'm thinking of Caterpillar. I'm thinking today of 3M with shares down nearly 5%. Ford, yet again, another disappointment, and its shares getting punished today. Is there any kind of broader statement we can take away with respect to the industrial sector, at least?
Well, it's struggling. I mean, you're certainly seeing that in terms of the disappointments. Companies talking about trade and tariffs as an issue for their business in many cases. My favorite example from yesterday is iRobot, the maker of Roomba vacuum cleaners, which, they tried to raise prices in order to offset tariffs, and they ended up having to roll them back. So their third quarter results were disappointing. The stock took a hit. So, that's the extreme example, perhaps. But, companies are certainly making it clear that the back and forth between the U.S. and China is hurting their results.
Yeah, and we saw that also with some economic data out this morning with respect to new business orders being down for a second month. So sort of solidifying this feeling of the industrial slowdown. And really, we have not necessarily seen consistent bleed through to the services sector and to other sectors when it comes to earnings. And I guess that investors are already feeling like they baked in a lot of pessimism, which is why you're getting some real pops. And frankly, not that big of a punishment on the way down for shares like Boeing.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you so much for joining us with that. Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Amy Moore is there with world and national headlines. Amy.
All right, thank you, Lisa. And in the race for the White House, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren has edged ahead of Joe Biden now. A new Quinnipiac University poll showing her leading all rivals outside of the margin of error. House Democrats, meanwhile, preparing to move their largely private impeachment inquiry into the public eye as early as mid-November. Among the witnesses Democrats hope to question in open session are the acting ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, and his predecessor, Marie Yovanovitch. Meanwhile, the U.S. has been closely monitoring the scene in northern Syria. Bloomberg's Bob Moon has that story.
As the president lifts sanctions on Turkey, his own special envoy for Syria, James Jeffrey, tells Congress Turkey's incursion is a tragedy and that Ankara-backed forces are likely behind several war crimes.
We haven't seen any widespread ethnic cleansing in that area since the Turks have come in. Many people fled because they're very concerned about these Turkish-supported Syrian opposition forces, as are we. We've seen several incidents which we consider war crimes.
President Trump says he's open to meeting with President Erdogan, and that could happen in the very near future. Bob Moon, Bloomberg Radio.
And Defense Secretary Mark Esper is lashing out at Turkey for its military assault. Esper saying that Turkey's unwarranted invasion into Syria jeopardizes security gains made against Islamic State. Public health officials fear their warnings about the dangers of vaping could send smokers back to cigarettes. A mysterious lung disease tied to vaping has stricken almost 1,500 people across the U.S. and killed 33. The CDC has struggled to identify the precise cause and has not yet blamed a single product or type of device. Global News 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.
To see something far away, you can either get a powerful telescope or you can go there.
Talk about export numbers because they've been quite shocking. In Korea, we saw Singapore, Japan too.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should investors be positioning?
When you take a look at the consumers in China, it remains challenging.
We go there.
To what extent is access to cheap credit part of the equation?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
What if you could... Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you. We've been together 3 years. We both love travel, and luckily we've got the same taste in music. Next year, we're planning a big road trip, and my wife's coming too. It'll be nice. The 3 of us don't do enough together. We know how much your Mini means to you. That's why Mini Service offers an array of convenient options and allows you to book online anytime at mini.co.uk. Because we love your Mini almost as much as you do. Search Mini Service. Who's in?
T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
The B&Q 3 for 2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3 for 2 on all paint, such as Dulux, Valspar and Farrow & Ball. For this show-stopping deal, hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3 for 2 it. Every third item per single transaction in the send-in price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard. Touchdown.
Despite the loss last week, the Badgers still control their Big Ten destiny. Wisconsin will face a formidable opponent as they try to get back on track with the undefeated and third-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes this week. The action starts at 9 a.m. Eastern this Saturday. Just search college to listen today.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And it continues to be this push and pull between earnings and the global outlook. I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom. It is Bloomberg Business Flash. The major averages are mixed. S&P 500 has turned lower, still above 3,000 though, 3,002 right now. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 80 points lower. That's down 0.3%. We're at 26,753. The Nasdaq Composite Index 22 points higher. That's up 0.3% at 8142. Treasuries also rising in price. The S&P 500 fluctuating after approaching the record. The Dow underperforming in part because of 3M's results showing the industrial downturn continues to hobble the manufacturer, and Twitter's disappointing forecast that's dragging down peers Facebook and Snap. Tech shares did rally as Microsoft sales and profit beat expectations. Positive outlook from Lam Research also lifting the chip makers. The 10-year yield right now 173 as the price rises by 7/30 seconds. And NYMEX crude is down 15 cents a barrel. We're at 56.12. We check the markets every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We're broadcasting live from Witham's 7th Annual Globit Summit at Event Space 2nd in New York City. This year's program features business leaders that are exploring past lessons, current trends, and a future outlook for global business. Joining us right now are Jason Maria Rathanam, senior consultant at consulting firm HLB Van Dahl, based in the Netherlands, but joining us on site here at the Witham Global Summit. Jason, thanks so much for joining us. I know in your panel coming up, you're going to be covering the manufacturing industry and how technology is impacting business. Give us your sense as you talk to your clients around the world. You know, kind of what are the big challenges that they are facing in terms of adapting to changes in technology?
Great. Thanks, Paul. I'm so happy to be here in New York City. It's a beautiful day outside, and I'm excited to talk about technology. I'm from Amsterdam, and we like to innovate, we like to change, and so do our clients. I keep saying this in presentations all around the world, that unless you're Coca-Cola or you're an old-fashioned watchmaker, technology is going to impact you. It's going to change the way you do business, change the way you think, and we see that. I'll just pick up one simple topic like logistics. Logistics is totally being impacted by technology. With AI, with robotics, with big data, it's all about how do I get my products to my end consumers as quick as possible and as cheap as possible. We see robotics taking over in logistics centrums, 3D printing. What I would advise people, if you're listening and if you're a business leader, just look at all of your processes and think, how can technology impact me and what kind of investments I need to make in there.
Jason, do you feel like business leaders in general are aware of how radical the change is and how quickly they have to adapt?
No, and I'll be very direct with that. I think only 10% of the business community understands the changes that are coming into place. And those 10% are usually the big boys that are playing the Googles of this world, the Facebooks, but the mid-level, the small businesses.
Is there a particular industry that's particularly behind?
What we would see is the retail market is still a bigger problem. I've seen back home where I live in a small town outside of Amsterdam. It's called Hoofddorp. Retail brick and mortar stores are closing down by the day. And yet you still see business owners saying, oh yeah, I've got a bit of cash lying around, so let's just go and open up another shop again. They make the same mistake again and again and again, and you got to ask yourself, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because they've looked at the past and they're making decisions based on the past, not of the future. They thought, oh, my dad did it, my uncle did it, so I should do it too. They're not learning from the future.
So for some of these, I get the big companies, the technology-oriented companies, obviously they have a better familiarity with change and evolution. But when you go to see some of your smaller and mid-sized clients, how do you get them to really start thinking about their business models and how they may need to adapt?
Right. So what we do at Van Dahl is we try to expose our clients to our larger clients, try to get them to think a bit differently, mandate almost that you have to read a book a day. Or pick up once a week at least, spend some sessions in the morning reading how. We've got a little program where we teach our staff to actually learn code to be more relatable to clients, getting them used to, familiar with internet, websites. You'll be surprised, we've still got clients that don't even have a website. And that is a big problem.
That's a problem.
Well, when you say technology, it's a pretty broad sweep of things. Artificial intelligence, logistics, while they can be paired together, are distinct and can be applied in different ways. So how do you go about determining, for the retailers, for example, what should they be doing? Because it's not just simply abandon brick and mortar. How should they be thinking in this technological era?
That's an excellent question. What they should be looking at is how do I bring in AI, bring in big data into understanding who my clients are. So I'll tell you a little story of a client of mine. What they do is they insert small little chips in the hangers, and they know how many times a piece of clothing is taken off a hanger, how many times it's put back, and that gives you a lot of information to give some perspective. If I have a customer that comes in, or several customers that come in and pick up the same piece of clothing and then put it back, that tells you a lot about maybe I'm pricing it wrong, maybe it's the wrong color, maybe it's not, but something is good about it, but I don't know why my clients are not buying it. So you can flow through from where it was picked up right to the checkout counter and see whether there's a good flow through there. Apart from that, you can set up sensors all the way around your store. You can tell which part of my stores are underutilized. There's a lot of stuff you can do with AI.
That sounds like it costs some money. How about some of these smaller and mid-sized companies? Do they have the capital to make these investments in technology?
Right, so we've got two parts of the market. One is a very conservative part I can speak for Europe. A lot of our clients are sitting on money. They're sitting on money. They don't want to invest. They don't know what's coming up ahead. I heard recently that in the U.S. that there is no such thing as a recession. I heard that. But in Europe, we're still very conservative over that. We don't know what's coming around, so we'll let it sit. And to answer your question, that costs a lot of money. Well, if you take it in small steps, baby steps, it shouldn't cost you a lot.
Jason Mariarathanam, thank you so much for being with us. Senior consultant at HLB Van Daal, which is based in Amsterdam, but is here with us on site in New York City at Witham 7th Annual Global Summit. Thank you so much. So interesting. Yep. I love the idea of these sensors. I love them, and I also wonder what else you can do with all of that data. That's the other issue, but at a certain point, people have to be aware that we live in a technological era, and people are looking to use the facilities they have to the best advantage possible. Coming up, we're going to be talking about Tesla and how they beat expectations and how it contrasts with those fortunes of Ford. This is Bloomberg Markets.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The S&P little changed on trade. China plans to buy at least $20 billion of American farm products in a year if it signs a trade deal with the U.S. Bloomberg has also learned it would consider boosting purchases as part of future negotiations. Microsoft's quarterly sales and profit were better than expected. The company got a boost from demand for its cloud computing programs. Meanwhile, revenue from the subscription-based Office 365 for corporate customers rose 25%. General Motors has moved closer to ending the 5-week strike. 61% of the workers at an important truck plant in Flint, Michigan, voted in favor of the tentative contract. And Pig Power, Smithfield Foods, and Dominion Energy are expanding their joint bet on producing renewable natural gas from pig waste. The power company and the world's largest pork producer plan to invest as much as $500 million to capture methane from hog farms for processing into natural gas. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg is excited to convene the Year Ahead Summit on November 7th in New York City. Speakers include Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, award-winning actor, producer, and businesswoman Sarah Jessica Parker, TPG co-CEO Jim Coulter, and CVS Health CEO Larry Merlo. Supporting sponsors, Pfizer, Workday, Hennessy Paradise Imperial. Participating sponsor, Invesco QQQ. Learn more at BloombergLive.com/TYA. Register with...
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money. And times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. so you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hi, Susan. What's a Brew City Brew Bite?
It's Beer Munch.
Oh, all right, but what exactly is it?
It's Beer Munch.
Okay. But what about a Brew City Halloumi Fry?
It's Beer Munch.
And an onion straw?
It's Beer Munch.
Yeah, it's Beer Munch. Yeah, so you keep saying. Hot, shareable snacks. They're delicious with a cold beer and friends. You'll find them in the freezer aisle. Brew City.
It's Beer Munch.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we'll take a look at Tesla's 3Q earnings. They beat expectations. The stock is surging in this morning's trading. Plus, we'll welcome our good friend Barry Ritholtz and get his thoughts on the likelihood of a recession in the next 12 to 18 months. But first, let's go to John Tucker of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
And Paul, the major averages, they are right now mixed. We had solid results from Microsoft, Lam Research, Tesla. That's helping lift sentiment following lackluster reports from big bellwether companies in the previous session. Then there's Twitter. That's plunging the most in more than a year after reporting quarterly results that fell short of Wall Street estimates. 3M dropping the most in 6 months after slashing its profit and sales outlooks. The latest sign of global industrial slowdown hobbling the manufacturer. That's helping push the Dow down right now 96 points. That's off about 0.4%. The Dow's at 26,737. Now the S&P 500 still above 3,000 by 1 point, 3,001. It is down 3 points, down about 0.1%. Nasdaq Composite Index 20 points higher. That's up about 0.3% at 8140. Well, we did get some economic news today. Latest sign of global industrial downturn is hobbling the manufacturers. Factory orders for durable goods dropping in September for the first time in 5 months. Benny Del Giudice says more.
It's the latest sign of dimmer global outlook, and trade tensions with China are weighing on U.S. manufacturers. Demand for business equipment fell for the second month in a row in September, while factory shipments matched the biggest decline since 2016. Separately, October's factory PMI from research firm Market edged higher, signaling possible stabilization. Benny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
And right now, the 10-year yield at 173. The price is up by 6/30 seconds. NYMEX crude up 44 cents a barrel. 56.41. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live from Witham's 7th Annual Global Summit. It's second in New York City. Let us talk about Elon Musk. He is having a very good day, one of vindication, at least for now, with respect to saying that he was going to experience a massive short burn for all those who are betting against the company. Shares of Tesla surging more than 14%, bonds surging as well, as they actually posted a surprise profit. Joining us now, Craig Trudell, Bloomberg News U.S. Autos team leader. So, Craig, if you could just dig in a little bit under the headline number here of an actual profit, how good did this quarter look for Tesla?
It was kind of a kitchen sink report for them. It was like anything they could possibly say that would be positive, they tried to throw out there last night. So the earnings were definitely a big surprise. They really sort of, put those numbers forward as a demonstration of progress from the perspective of the cost cutting that they've done, trying to sort of get their house in order and be able to sort of prove that they can sustainably make money, something that they just haven't been able to do. A year ago, I think a lot of people had this commentary last night that this quarter felt very reminiscent of a year ago when Tesla surprised everybody with a profit, but they weren't able to sustain that, as we know. So that's still a question. But, getting back to the positivity, the Model Y, which is sort of the crossover version of the Model 3, that will be ready in the summer of next year rather than the fall, which is a little faster than they were expecting. The facility that they've been building on the outskirts of Shanghai is starting trial production of Model 3. So there were a whole bunch of announcements that they made to really get the bulls excited and sort of change the narrative.
So, Craig, one of the narratives is unit profitability or the lack thereof. Did they give a sense of when they expect to really turn the profit corner on a consistent basis?
I think there's still some skepticism, and rightfully so, on that front. The Model 3 is a significant portion of their business, and very interestingly, Elon Musk said something to the effect of, the only reason we're keeping the Model S and X around is sort of being loyal to them or something to that effect. We really are just kind of keeping them around because it would be sad to kill them. That was such a cavalier statement on his part when those start for double the price of the Model 3.